Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today is Tuesday. It is June the 23rd. We had a Monday off that I wasn't really planning on, so I'll give you the quick and dirty on that. Number one, the entire stream and all my technology crashed, and I couldn't get anything to run. And all the software was glitching, so I had to reboot it all. And I went line by line, and I did a bunch of really nerdy stuff. But basically, I spent the whole day yesterday rebuilding and rebooting and double-checking all the technology. And what you might find, for those of you that watch this on like a television, and if you watch this in 4K over on YouTube, I think I finally got the sort of like max headroom effect that was going on this camera forever. It was a settings issue, and I also upgraded some technology, so we have a better capture card. But I think you're going to get a smoother and cleaner look. So hopefully that will help some of your eyesight and doesn't make you guys watch this. You'll also be able to see that my beard is shaggy, and it'll be in 4K. So there's that. The second thing is that my family has been doing this fun game where we've been passing around this stomach bug around. And maybe you guys are dealing with the same thing. One of my kiddos, my tiniest one, decided to throw up in her bed the other night. That's always fun. A couple nights ago. And then it kind of went around the family. My wife got it. My oldest daughter got it. And then I spent most of Father's Day hanging out in my bed sick. And then my son decided to do it last night at about 1 o'clock. So if you notice in 4K that I have red eyes, then you're getting the dad who got 4 hours of sleep and was washing out very colorful remains from his illness. Anyway, so it's going to be an interesting time here in the Seraphin house as we try to figure this out. But we are back from the technical difficulties and just in time. We got a whole bunch of things happening at the same time, as usual. And I do see kind of a thread. I'm watching people like Tucker Carlson say that he's leaving the Republican Party. And a mixed bag of people saying, well, who cares? It's just Tucker Carlson. He doesn't really matter. He's going to find out how little he matters. I don't think that's true. I think he actually is representing a faction of people who've already left. The people that kind of explain to me that they're politically homeless, that we are in a post-partisan scenario. People like my friend Amy Nelson has explained this in those terms, and I very much like it. That there is no party that represents the political right. There's no party that represents common sense people, conservative people, people who are otherwise liberal-minded and just don't think the government is going to perform. That sort of general sentiment that we're not going to vote our way out of it. And the Brits are going through a moment as well, where their Labour Party leader, Starmer, he just resigned. And he's the, I think, 6th, so there'll be a 7th prime minister in 10 straight years in the UK, which is a lot of turnover. Because they also have this thing. Everybody is looking for the government to solve problems the government created, but at the end of the day, I don't think the government is going to be the ones who do it. What they give us is more of the same. We don't do reform with the same people. And so when the majority of the folks that stay in these offices keep hanging out there, then we keep getting more of the same. There's plenty of evidence of that going on today. That doesn't mean that anybody that thinks the way that I do or that wants less government is going to turn around and vote for Democrats or go to the political left. And that's pretty much what Tucker Carlson also said. We've got this sort of horrific moment where we know that there's a lot of problems. They're massive, and there's no people that seem to represent what the solution looks like. And so there's a primary that's going on right now in New York, and nasty scumbags like Dan Goldman, and I don't know any other way to say it, but Dan Goldman is one of like the least likable people in Congress. He did maybe one of the least likable things you could do yesterday. He went out there and defended his chief of staff, who looks like a disgusting pervert. And I'll say that he's a homosexual guy, and there are people who are homosexual that are not disgusting perverts, I'm sure. But this guy is like wearing leather and hanging his ass out in public and going to all kinds of disgusting sort of fetish stuff. So there is that. And Dan Goldman came out and defended him and said he's a wonderful person. And it makes you wonder how far out of touch the political left must be. And I've got some examples of those as well. And then lastly, kind of the result of leftists, hard left, absolutely absurd policies, whether it be in Chicago where people are being shot to the tune of 6, 7, 8 people in a weekend, or up in Canada where we had a shooting in Montreal, which, by the way, didn't make it in any of the American papers. And it was a truly horrific thing. It ran all the way across all my social medias because I'm kind of tuned in towards police shootings. And there was a police officer who was killed. A civilian was killed by a police officer, if the video is correct, and that's what it looks like it is. And then the shooter was actually killed. It all took place in front of the world headquarters of AYLO, AYLO, which is the owning management company of Pornhub. And you had maybe all of the things at once. You had one of the world's largest purveyors of pornography and their headquarters building, which it does take a huge building to run. You had some guy that was mad about it who was doing a shooting, and he ends up shooting a Muslim cop who's 34 years old in Montreal, and a female police officer ends up shooting a Jewish rabbi who was somehow in the area as well. Just the confluence of strange things in that story. I don't know that it represents anything bigger than it's a crazy story, and it lets you know that in a city or a state or a country where they don't let you defend yourself and own your own firearms, and you have the opportunity to at least do something except run around the corner seeking cover and getting shot in the face by a cop, that's not the solution either. So again, there's no left-wing solution for me. All right, we're going to get into today's program in just a second. Before we do, I'll just kind of give you guys a reminder. Our friends over at Patriot Protect actually got some of the graphics working today. Patriot-Protect.com/KYLE. About halfway into today's show, we're going to do an interview with Skip Holtz that I'd already booked. And so I'm going to bring him on to discuss some of the things, which is that it is too big for us to deal with. Most of these problems are. Most people don't realize there's hundreds of companies they've never heard of that are publishing their names and their home phone numbers and their kids' names. And cyber criminals use this to target you. They just Google you. They find out where you live. They look up your home address, your email, all the people you're related to. And then they start answering security questions when they hack your bank account using some leaked stuff that's out there on the dark web. And so it's a leaked username. They reset the password. They get inside the account. And then you find out after the fact that you're into $1,500, $6,000, $100,000, depends on, how the scam works or what they've scammed you out of. But these are very frequent. I've had them happen in my own family. Members of my family have reached out to me and told me, hey, would the FBI look into this? It's $150,000. They probably won't. Unfortunately, they don't do the thing we think they would do. That's not what government does. Patriot Protect is out there finding your information at these hundreds of sites, wiping them off the internet so there's nothing for criminals to search. It just makes you a harder target. It reduces what Skip calls the attack surfaces, which make you vulnerable to these types of people. And if you guys want to check them out, it's patriot-protect.com/KYLE. Promo code Kyle usually saves you 15%. It comes out to about $5 a month for an annual subscription. Again, KYLE at the end will give you 15% off. Usually Skip will double that. So we'll double check here. And if that's the case, I'll update the show notes and you guys may see a change if you're listening and you're like, hey, that's not what it says down there. I'll update it if that turns out to be the case. All right, guys, we're going to get into today's program and we're going to start it right now. Oh, it went to a black screen. That's the one thing that I didn't find. I went line by line through every single scene that I have. And I have, 50 or 60 different scenes built into my my Stream Deck. And I found out that I was routing my camera through all these different names, which I didn't like. So we fixed that, I think. And there's one left. And so I just found it just now. I knew I was going to do that too in the live show. Okay, so here we go. Let's start off with the police officer situation. And the reason why is because this might be the worst thing that you can imagine. Imagine that you're not allowed to own a firearm. You're not allowed to protect yourself. And somebody decides to start shooting. So what do? You have to rely on the police officers in the area and you hope that they're going to respond appropriately. And you hope that they don't shoot you in the face. That'd be a thing I would really hope for. I'm going to read you the story because, again, this is not in any American news that I saw. And I had to go digging for it. Which I do think this is a bigger story than is being played out. But it also makes me think that maybe it's being quieted down because of where it took place, which is interesting. Montreal police, the SPVM, all of this stuff is going to be foreign to us, by the way, because we're not Canadian here, generally speaking. But if you're Canadian and you know what I'm talking about, great. Feel free to put it in the comments below. 3 people are dead following a shooting in the city's Côte d'Inis, I have no idea, neighborhood on Monday. They have French things up there. I should have had Viva on. to tell me about what the heck this is. A 34-year-old police officer was killed in the shooting, which started around 11:35 a.m. at the corner of Cottray and Trans Island Avenue. Female police officer was sent to the hospital with serious injuries, but apparently she survived. It looked like she may have actually been killed. Go figure. A civilian was also shot dead in the shooting. I've seen this from multiple angles, and the angles looks like he was killed by the cop, the female police officer. Gunman, whose identity has not been released, has been killed as well, said the police. And the threat to the public is now over. The investigation's been turned over to the police watchdog, something that is called the Bureau d'Indépendance, the BEI. All right. Apparently, this guy released a manifesto that was found. It was 100 pages long. I don't know why everyone thinks they need to do a manifesto these days, but apparently they do. It's found in a hotel room. It's more than 100 pages long, delves into a number of grievances, talks about incel or involuntary celibate ideology, resisting the emancipation of women, and the porn industry. The manifesto lists several groups of people and entities that should be target: large pornographic industry conferences, the headquarters of international pornography companies, prominent individuals who are in the pornographic sphere, actors and actresses themselves who are very wealthy and actively promote pornography to the people and to the public. That's what it says. The shooting took place near the offices of AYLO, AYLO, which is the parent company of Pornhub, the world's largest pornography website, and its subsidiaries. So this is apparently what got this going. I got two different angles of the shooting. I'm going to play it for you guys so you can see it. It's worth noting that whenever we see these sort of active shooter moments, and they do happen, but this one's kind of an outlier. This is not a thing that you'd normally see. This is not like your standard experience of some guy is, running around, I don't know, shooting up a school for having some mental illness. Maybe this isn't a mental illness, but it's a very targeted sort of ideology, and you went to the place where it was going on. Okay. The reason why I think it's relevant is because if you've never thought about being in an urban area and what are your options, now would be a great option, or now a great time rather, to think about it. One of the things I always encourage people to do, a stop the bleed course, know how to do a March assessment, know how to do some of the basic things that would be able to handle business after shooting stops. But if you've never been a shooter and you have the physical capabilities of doing it, if you've never been someone who carried a weapon, this could have been solved by any number of things that are sitting just outside the door of this studio. A bolt-action rifle solves this problem. Police officers with patrol rifles that know how to handle business. The other thing is you're going to see that the police officers basically do not have the training or the wherewithal to engage an active shooter. And this is another big problem in probably Canada, but I'm sure it's the same problem in the United States. We want to have our police officers that are well-trained, and we want them to be well-equipped, and we want them to be maybe the only people that are running around and administering deadly force or the lethal capabilities to do force. And yet, we don't give them force-on-force training. There's a number of comments that came back at me, and people said, I play paintball, and some of the things you learn about are you don't crowd cover. Crowding cover means you get right up on the cover. And it's the worst-case scenario because you've basically given yourself no ability to see what's going on around you. And you don't know that unless you've actually been in a scenario where maybe you were using simunitions, maybe you were using paint rounds, but you learned what it's like to take something coming in your way. I've done a number of force-on-force trainings. I've done them in and around vehicles where I used to work. You learn all kinds of things about what you can see and what you can't see. You learn all kinds of things about what your expectations are, about what you can do. Most people will find that if there's a piece of glass in between them and somebody else, they're not going to shoot through it if they're a cop. And yet you can shoot right through glass and it works really great. The bad guys don't know what the rules are. The good guys usually don't have enough training, even though they're running around with the equipment and they're well marked and they've got this belt that says that I'm the guy that's supposed to handle, bad things. We're going to watch this video together. We'll see what we think. It's pretty graphic. It's pretty awful. The camera person in the first one is very bad and it's all over the place, but it's a really chaotic scenario. And it's not what you think. It's not like this guy ran up and tried to kill everybody. I mean, it seems like he's either targeting cops or maybe he thought he was going to get into the building or something. So here we go. Okay, you can hear the shooting in the background. They're zooming in. This is the building. And there's a police officer that's laying down in front of looks like a Porsche maybe. The female cop is right next to this light pole. You can see her. She's tucked up next to like a white planter box. And this is where it gets really crazy. So there's one cop that's down in front of the car. This guy comes around and looks like that's how she ended up getting shot. I don't know how he got shot, the shooter. but it's pretty awful. And here's the worst part of it. This is the, civilian or whatever it is that got shot. You're seeing this dude in camouflage. He's got some kind of thing. Looks like he's reloading pretty regularly, and he's not shooting all that frequently. Now he's down, and he's shooting into the air. All really scary stuff. Let me give you the... nothing worse than the French talking over it, right? Or the French Canadians. Okay, here's the second shooting angle, and this is where you can see that the female police officer is surprised by a civilian who runs around the corner and ends up getting shot. Now, there's some arguments that were made. Oh, it looks like the bad guy was the one who actually shot him. If you look at the way the blood spatter, and I've watched this way too many times, it does look like it comes from the police officer. I guess we'll find out more about it in the near future. One way or another, getting up on cover like that, you can see the female cop, she basically does herself a terrible disservice. She puts herself in danger. She's unable to defend her partner, who ended up dying, from what I can tell. Really, really awful. Everything about this is bad. People are much less likely to do this kind of thing when they think they're going to meet an armed resistance who could be anybody, and not just like the marked cops you can see. And interestingly enough, this is this weird conflation of a million bizarre things that all happened at once. I'm going to go back to the story before we do the second angle. This is the guy who's supposedly a rabbi that was confirmed killed. He's the victim's name. His name is Michael Moshe Mizrahi. So he was called out by this Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs, a Jewish advocate group, said he was a high-value member of the society or their community. You're getting a bunch of commentary on people that are like, kind of like memes are already being created, because all this is really strange. You've got a shooting outside of Pornhub. You've got the slain police officer ends up being a guy named Mohammed Lamin Benran. I have no idea how to pronounce this last name. I'm not even going to play with it. A 34-year-old Muslim police officer. I'm guessing based on the name, but that seems like it's probably a pretty safe guess. Muslim police officer, Jewish rabbi shot and killed, female cop involved outside of a pornography headquarters. It's a pretty crazy story. The fact that it didn't get picked up by any U.S. outlets, I looked all over the place. I didn't see any of that. Anyhow, all right, here's the second angle. I think this is really bad to watch. Again, this female cop, she really puts herself at a terrible disadvantage. And I think a lot of people could make this exact same terrible move. And yet, all it shows me is we're not teaching cops how to deal with force on force, because you would never crowd up and get up on the edge of this wall if you knew what you were getting into.
Walking. What is
so there's
wrong
some random
with him?
dude who's just chilling. There's the shooter running by in camo. He hides behind a pillar. There's probably like 30 feet distance.
What the fuck?
So there's
He's just shooting the cops.
So one cop gets shot. He crawls to behind that car.
Holy shit.
This guy looks like he's sending rounds down close to the building.
Oh my god.
Okay, one cop down,
God,
and
oh
then
my god, oh my god.
that's how you can see that's the female police officer who turns and she's surprised by some guy who looks like he's trying to escape. But that guy wasn't being shot by the subject for whatever reason. Anyway, it's a crazy story. I'll keep an eye on it only because I'm very interested in urban shootings, because I just avoid these things. It's my nightmare. And it might be your nightmare too. It's the reason why I train the way I train. It's the reason why I'm going to be bringing up some of the stuff that we're going to do on the Tackleberry project. Like, if you're not training to shoot a handgun at rifle distances on occasion, if you're not training with movement as a regular basis, and I'm pretty confident that that's not what's going on in Canada, we're in a bad spot. And again, that's the sort of like the far left versions of this is the best case scenario, is that the only people that have guns apparently are the bad guys and the cops, and not us. I even just saw my buddy Mark Naughton sent me a link to a post that was done by the New York Housing Authority, of all places. And they were very excited to say that they grabbed an AR-15 rifle with a silencer on it, with a suppressor, which means the person has already gone through a bunch of background checks. A duty belt, which had handcuffs, because apparently the person who had it was a bounty hunter and was running after a federal fugitive. And then a couple of magazines and a Glock. And they were cheering it on. They were like, look what we got. We got this reckless and dangerous weapon system off the streets of New York. It's like it was being carried in by somebody who had a holster, who had a battle belt, who was using professional equipment, who had handcuffs for restraints, and probably had the legal authority to use them. Very, very weird to watch this kind of stuff out there. Again, this is like sort of the lefty version of what they want to see. All right, so let's get into, just so you guys think that I'm not just picking on Canada, This was something I saw yesterday, and I flagged for yesterday's show and didn't get to do it. 7 killed, dozens injured following a series of weekend shootings out in Chicago. Again, I'm more than happy to point out that the left is not the way that I'm going to go. I'm not going to be turning around and supporting leftist causes, leftist politicians. You're not going to see me like sort of the Nick Fuentes who says, we got to make the Republicans pay. And so the answer is vote for Democrats. I just don't think voting does anything because I keep seeing the same people get involved. And if you look at what the Democrats are fielding, we'll cover it in a little bit. It's basically, do you want to do left-wing pieces of shit like Dan Goldman, or do you want to deal with lunatic leftists who are backing Mamdami's plan, the sort of communist mayor of New York? It's a crazy position to try to hold. You can't make that argument. And in fact, I think the argument is being made by people. This is amusing to me that the right-wing commentary is coming from a heavy-set gay guy named Tim Dillon. Now, Tim, I have no idea where his politics actually are, but a lot of the stuff he says makes sense. And this one I was listening to yesterday while I was sitting at the park. By the way, sitting at the park, kids are playing. And of course, there are like 3 to 4 Indian men wandering around. They had 2 children between 3 or 4 different men. And one of the guys has on earphones. This is just a pet peeve of mine, but he's got earphones on, like these big, like sort of Beats by Dre style headphones. And he leans into his car, and I swear he must have blown his horn for 12 seconds. And I'm looking over and I'm like, is this guy in distress? Is he having a heart attack? Do I need to respond? And then he gets out of the car and he looks and he's fine. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then he leans back into his car. It does another like 8 to 10, 12 seconds of the horn blowing because he's got earphones on and he can't pay attention to what's going on around him. And he lives in this parallel universe. I've never seen anybody from my country do something like that. So then the 3 Indian men come up and they have these like limp-wristed high fives and finger touches and hand-holding weird stuff. And they all sit there and they're slapping each other around. And all I could think about is, all of you guys are taking up jobs that American kids would do, that American college graduates would do. Why are you in my country? And why do you not know that you can't just lean on the horn next to a playground? In any case, you know that we end up in this sort of the bizarre place where people who are elitists and come from, Northeastern backgrounds like Tucker Carlson are agreeing with left-wing guys who should be left-wing, who are homosexual comedians out in Los Angeles, and then regular dudes like me sitting here in Texas behind a desk with a beard. Like, we all have the same thought, which is that you can't lie your way out of this. You're not going to be able to vote your way out of this, and you can't do enough bread and circuses to distract people away from seeing what they're seeing, which is where we're at today on this Tuesday morning. Here's Tim Dillon saying things that I think are abundantly true. There's not going to be enough flybys with Kid Rock to keep people interested at this point.
That the MAGA movement is starting to be pulled apart, and it's fraying, and there's only so many parties you can throw. There's only so many UFC events at the White House lawn you can throw to keep these people entertained. There's only so many concerts in the park or whatever the hell they're going to try to do. Kid Rock can only do a flyby in a stealth bomber so many times before people start to go, hey, what's going on here? Why don't I have any money? Why don't I have any money? Did you see Kid Rock? Dude, he did shut up. Where's my money? I don't have any money. What are we doing? So Vance is he's pounding the pavement right now, trying to figure out how he can, because it's Vance v. Rubio. Rubio's staying quiet. Rubio's owned by the donors. Vance is owned by other donors, by the way. Vance is not without donors. If you want to know who Vance's donors are, go look at that Peter Thiel list.
I don't know how you get out of it with the same people. I don't know how you get out of it because the system actually encourages something that seems pretty obvious. The system keeps putting in this false binary. And the amazing thing for me is, and I don't know, I expect people to be more rational than they are. The amazing thing is that I'll watch people on the political right say that we don't have political parties, we have a uniparty. And they're all from the same party. They're all part of the uniparty. And you go, okay, yeah, I tend to agree with that Washington, politics, government serves its own interest. Sure. These people seem like trash. We keep putting in people that want to go do this job. This job, it clearly lures in people of a very specific persuasion, people that need the attention, think that they're the right answer. Like the worst people to be in charge of anything are generally the people who want to be in charge of it. How many of you have ever been on a team where someone's like, I'll be in charge? And you're like, oh, just anybody but that. That's every time I've seen it. I never want to see the person that volunteers to be in charge. I've actually got a story that we'll probably close with about a female FBI agent who's pissed off that she's been in the FBI for 3 years and she's not a supervisor. And apparently thinks it's okay to go out and get hammered on her first year in the job with guys around her that she works with, and then get hammered again. And then even though she's getting inappropriate text messages, still go out drinking with them and then suing, and she still has her freaking job in the FBI, but she's not in charge. Her opportunities for advancement were limited. That was one of the stories that we found. It's being covered by a foreign paper of all places. I don't think you get out of it by putting the same people in over and over again. So this is Tucker Carlson's sort of big statement. And this is like the least bombshell, least groundbreaking thing that I've probably ever heard. He just said, I don't support either party. Well, Tucker Carlson is a couple years late to this game. But better late than never, saying true things. There's no way you could support the other side when they want you to end up basically unarmed and victimized by third world cretins and people who have mental illness and do crazy stuff. And at the same time, it's not like, quote unquote, your party is doing anything better. So, interestingly enough, I think the focus ends up being what is within our parameters of control and what can we actually focus in on? And I keep landing back at the 5 F's, and they're not very complicated. You can have faith that you're not supposed to win on this world. When my wife and I were up the other night in the middle of the night and it was rough, we're not feeling good. We got sick kiddos. She's like, are we not doing the right thing? It's like, that's not what God promises. If you're a Christian, you actually don't believe that. You don't believe that you're supposed to win on earth because it's not supposed to be about that. It is really hard to reconcile that with the instincts that we have for self-preservation and survival. It's really hard. But faith is something you can always struggle and work at, even if you're not good at it, which is what we should all be doing. I'll preach to you on that one. You should also work on taking care of your family. You can work within your own family. I can make sure that my kids know what right and wrong is. I can make sure that they're disciplined, right? I can't make sure that somebody else's kids are. I can't even handle somebody else's family. I can set an example maybe with my own as best I can do, which is not going to be perfect. And then you can work on your fitness. You got a pretty good say on that. You can go and you can work out, take care of your body. That's the temple you were given, so you can deal with the fitness piece of it. You can adjust and learn firearms, which is just to say that you know how to defend yourself. And you can work on cultivating your own food supply, whether that means a bunch of emergency food stored away or whether you're growing out of the ground. Like, you can handle those things. Those are within your view. Everything else, pretty negotiable. And as we talk about every single day here, there's more and more evidence that all the people that you thought that you outsourced the need to do, I outsource someone to protect us. We pay our taxes. We have police officers. Those police officers aren't properly trained. And they end up shooting a guy in the face who's looking for cover, who did something stupid. I mean, he went running around the corner where the cop was, but should that be fatal necessarily? If that woman had been further away from that cover, maybe not. Pretty awful. All right, here's Tucker Carlson's bombshell, and you guys tell me in the comments, is this a bombshell?
I would not support the Republican Party. There's no chance I would support the Republican Party. I'm not going to support the Democratic Party. I don't know what I'm going to do. But at this point, how could I or any American voter support a political party that's not loyal to the United States, that puts the interests of a foreign country above those of its own citizens? That's it's not possible to vote for people like that, and I'm not going to. And I think I voted Republican my entire life. I worked at Fox News, CNN, right, MSNBC. I've been a consistent defender for 35 years of the Republican Party. I mean, very consistent defender. But there's no defending this because it's immoral, and it's exactly the opposite of what a political party in a democracy is charged with doing, which is representing its own voters, its own citizens, its own nation. And they're not doing that. So no, I'm out. And if I'm out, then I think a lot of other people are out. I would not support the Republican Party. There's no
I think it's cute that he says, if I'm out, then a lot of other people are out. He's not wrong. But I don't think it's because Tucker Carlson said that he's out. I think that he's simultaneously realizing the same thing that many of us have for the last couple of years. Just because I don't have an option on the political left, and then I can't lean over there and go like, yeah, these people are rational, reasonable actors, and their solutions are just slightly different than mine. Maybe we'll give them a shot. That's not an option. We don't have that choice. But it's not like the people that are, quote unquote, on our side are operating as though they're actually getting it done on our side. So my answer is I just don't want to vote for the lesser of two evils, period. You guys do whatever you want. I'm not telling anyone not to vote. You guys should make your own decisions. I rarely tell people what to do other than you should work on your fitness. You should work on your faith, your family, your firearm skills, and your farming. Like those all seem objectively easy to suggest. But when it comes to like, what's the answer? I don't think it's done at the ballot box. There's no evidence of it because we keep getting the same types of people. Now, Tucker Carlson kind of like hones in on one thing. And he's hard to watch for some people right now because of the thing that he hones in on, which is that there's an Israel problem. There's too much Israeli money in the United States. There's too much Israeli influence in the United States. And it seems like it's coming in from a couple different places. There are Jewish donors and dual citizen Israelis that are involved in American politics. And that's a thing. And it's real. And there's money involved. No question about it. There's also this bizarre sort of like evangelical push that seems to think that they can usher in God's will, they can usher in God's plan with certain actions on their own end. And that's bizarre. And then there's a misunderstanding, I think, about what the church is and what the church is not when it comes to the Christian end of things. And I don't buy any of that either. But Tucker is not completely nuts when he goes in and focuses on it. I think he's a little bit hyper focused on one problem and one problem only, and he's willing to bring on anybody that will talk about it. Part of it is because you've got people like American political ambassadors who are telling you that they would rather hang out in an Israeli war zone and felt safer than if they were home in Washington, D.C., where they spent many years working in politics. I'm talking about Ambassador Mike Huckabee. The craziest thing about Mike Huckabee saying this, and I want you to put this in this lens, he's talking that he would rather be in a bomb shelter in Israel than walking on the streets of Washington, D.C., because people say mean things to him in Washington, D.C. And that makes it not safe. I thought this was supposed to be the party of free speech where you can come up and have any bad idea you want as long as you say it. I don't care. The second part of this thing that's really funny is that Donald Trump was touting and has been touting along with Kash Patel and Daniel Bongino and Jeanine Pirro. They were all touting, Pam Bondi. We've made Washington, D.C. the safest it's ever been before. How does that work? It's the safest Washington, D.C. that's ever been, and Mike Huckabee is not safe, and he'd rather be in a bomb shelter in Israel, in Jerusalem. I don't know, but this is how people like Tucker Carlson end up getting myopic on one particular topic.
Last year, I was back in Washington after the 12-day war with the Prime Minister and for the meetings we had with the President and the U.S. team. And while I was there, on two different occasions, I got surrounded by these pro-Hamas crazy people. One started out as two ladies. It ended up being about 20 people surrounding me, yelling and screaming, and it was really getting close to a little uncomfortable. Finally, some D.C. police officers came and extracted me. A couple of nights later, I was leaving the Blair House, where there was a reception, and some same pro-Hamas crazy people across the street recognized me. And that's not all it's cracked up to be. And they started screaming and yelling. And finally, Senator Jim Lankford of Oklahoma had a car coming. I was waiting on an Uber. And he said, "Just get in my car. I'm not sure you're going to make it till the Uber gets here." Thank the Lord for him.
I don't know why that's
funny, by the way. So he got me out of there. And I told some of my friends later, I said, I can't wait to get out of this crazy town and get back to Jerusalem where I feel safe.
That is such a dishonest and ridiculous statement. And it's done for laughs, and it's done for an applause break while he's standing there in front of the Jewish news service thing, and he's in Israel doing it. That's supposed to be the American ambassador representing American interests to Israel. And instead, he seems like he's 100% pro-Israel, representing Israel's interests to America, and then he does so in a verbal way on a regular basis too. And that's pretty gross. So when you have these types of people out there that are representing us from our federal government, I'll just say this. It makes it really hard to look and say, I have a side at all, like the people on our side. I regularly get hit like, why are you always out there like poking people at our side? It's like, that guy's not on my side. I don't know what that guy's doing, but it's not on my side. I don't know anybody that talks like that. I don't have any friends that talk like that. I don't want to hang out with people that talk like that. People that tell me ridiculous things, represent positions that have nothing to do with my country. That's what the bacon cheeseburger nationalist movement is, which is just in my head and also in some of your heads. We like to have a cheeseburger. And if you give me a choice of bacon, the answer is yes. With a bun. If you can't eat bacon or cheese, or you can't have meat and dairy touch each other, then you're not the dominant culture of America. That doesn't mean that you're the worst culture ever, and it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be allowed to live. It just means I don't really want anything to do with you. And if I can't introduce you to my culture in my country, then what the hell are we doing here? I don't get it. I really don't. Again, I've got examples of people on the political left acting like complete buffoons. I've got a couple of them. Perversion, horrificness, just absolute like the worst reading. If this is what sells in New York, it gives you kind of an instinct on why places like New York are not considered America in my mind. And I hate that's true, but it is true. I don't consider it America. I don't consider anything north of the Potomac, really. Like when I left Virginia, and Northern Virginia is iffy. It's definitely like a DMZ type area. When you moved into the Marylands, when you move into the Northeast, there may be some pockets out there that are American adjacent. But it just doesn't feel like anything that's familiar to me. The people are too close. Their ideas are too left-wing, far too left-wing from my understanding. They don't have any experience of like what the rest of the country lives like. There's this old poster. It's kind of like a joke. And I don't know if my father-in-law has it or if it's just his mindset. But my father-in-law was born in Manhattan and legitimately doesn't believe in people having property. So, of course, he has a $1 million+ home. That's not an exaggeration. And, there's this like, it's the New Yorker's view of America. And it's like standing there and it's like, there's uptown, there's midtown, there's downtown, there's Brooklyn, there's Chicago, there's San Francisco, there's Los Angeles, like there's Dallas. I'm like, that's all of America. It's just like a couple of cities that are out there and just a vast wasteland. And I do think that some of the people that are stuck in Washington, D.C. have a very similar mentality, except it's even worse and it's way dumber. And that beltway bubble that you hear about, it's a real thing. When you get inside Washington, D.C., you think everything revolves around it, just like people in New York think the world revolves around New York. And I got to tell you, if there was a tidal wave that swept New York away, I wouldn't know about it if I didn't have any family members there. I just wouldn't know about it. It would be about as media blackout in my world as what goes on in Montreal, where there's like this crazy shooting and a bunch of people are getting shot and we have all this crazy stuff going on. So we're going to get into more of those in just a second. If you guys are watching on YouTube, make sure you guys give us a like. If you're watching on Rumble, give us a like. Appreciate those of you that like from the day before. I know we're using yesterday's stream key setup. Want to let you know that we weren't going to be here. Subscribe wherever you can. You can subscribe on both Rumble and YouTube. And you can also find us on Spotify at KyleSeraphinShow.com. That's how you get to Spotify. It sounds like one of our fans, our listeners, bought the KyleSeraphinShow.com and made a very cool website, which, by the way, has some inaccurate facts, but it's pretty cool. It's way nicer. So I'm going to try to reach out and talk to him. If you guys want to go to KyleSeraphinShow.com, it will take you to Spotify. Give us a 5-star rating there. Give us a review. You can leave a comment on every single one of your things. You can respond back and forth to other people's comments. It's a great place to listen. And they also monetize us, which is our single, like it pays the rent here. So you may hear an ad from them and that'll kick in right now. Maybe it'll kick in right now. And if it does, let me know who it is sometimes. I get a kick out of it. Every once in a while, you guys will let me know like who's advertising on this program. It tells you a little bit about who you are because you represent the audience. You're a microcosm for our audience, and it tells you who's trying to reach you. And these random ads are almost always like Fox News, Bongino Show, Ben Shapiro's advertised on our show, a couple of others. Kind of funny. Funny to watch. Let me give you another example. This is a not so nice version of Mike Huckabee. This is the reason why you've got Tucker Carlson making these claims and why he's so myopic. Again, it looks like this. You guys know who it's coming up. He's bald. He's angry. He's wearing a women's pin, possibly for Juneteenth, he loves Israel.
I want to say to people in and out of the administration, stop trashing, smearing, bullying the little state of Israel.
Oh, now they're the little state.
Stop cozying up to and telling us that the enemy regime in Iran is now more rational, more moderate, and a regime that we can deal with. When just a few months ago they slaughtered 50,000 people, they're still hanging young people today. And if they had a nuclear missile today, they'd fire it into our country as sure as I'm alive. I don't know what's going on, but if people think they can bully a little country, a people that have existed 4,000 years, through the Babylonians and the Persians, through the Romans and the Third Reich, into surrendering their defense and their decision on how to secure their country, they got another thing coming.
Do you see how big this pin is that is on my chest? Do you see how big this American flag is? And that's how you know. That's how you know, because of the American flag that's on my chest. I've got a picture of Lincoln behind me. Somebody pointed out that they just blocked the guy on social media so they didn't have to see his clips. It's unhinged. Stop bullying Israel. What are you talking about? We have an ambassador that's supposed to be representing the United States that's representing Israel back to the United States, and he's our guy. So, okay. You made it 4,000 years. Congratulations. You get a big pin that looks like it's got a lady's face on it that you can wear on your jacket, the 4,000-year pin. Epic. And after that, then we don't have to pay for it anymore? Is that the way it works? Because I think that when you make asks, then there are strings that are supposed to come with it. I think that's how politics works. I think that's how nation states are supposed to operate. Pretty sure. If somebody were to say, offer you something from one country, then that country gets to kind of put some conditions on it. Stop bullying Israel. In any case, it's hard to watch. That doesn't mean that the other side makes any bit of more sense on this. And I'm going to show you that in 1 second here. Let's actually do a couple of little news stories that came out. This is an ongoing story, and I'm going to show you two things that I think are related, even though they don't appear to be related at all. Okay? Number one, Trump insists that Iran has agreed to a nuclear inspection in their talks for their war-ending deal. Iran has denied it and begun discussions about a nuclear program. They said they have not. They said they haven't agreed to allow the International Atomic Energy inspectors back. So who's correct? This is an NBC News story published by the Associated Press. And we legitimately have the lead part of the headline is Trump says this and Iran says this. Now, in a rational and sane world, we would look and say, well, the Iranian regime has been a hostile nation for the United States for a long time. They didn't have the ability to project power into the United States, but they're clearly a bad actor in the region, and they are not America's friend. So given the choice between listening to and believing the president of the United States and listening to and believing a theocratic regime of, radical Islamists in the Middle East, I'm going to go ahead and just agree with the president, no matter who the president is. Like, the default position goes to the American president. Unless the president has spent the last 18 months destroying his own credibility and saying things that Americans can look at and go, well, that's objectively false. You are straight lying to us. You said you were going to make America affordable again. You picked a voluntary war. You said you were going to do tens of millions of deportations. We're not even getting like more than 1 million or 2. We're not even getting close. You said that we were going to do no new wars. We went and got into a voluntary war. You said you were going to fix the deep state and you were going to try to stop the weaponized government, and you decided that that's not important. You said you were going to try to secure elections, and you can't get your party on board to do that. So maybe the worst part of it is that you said that we were going to get transparency related to Jeffrey Epstein, and then 5 seconds later, after they went out there and got a bipartisan movement to declassify and release all these documents, you're like, Jeffrey Epstein? Are you losers still talking about this? I don't need losers like this in my movement. And so then you get the Tim Dillons, you get the Tucker Carlsons, you get guys like me saying, hey, I get it, bro. You don't want us part of your movement. I really wasn't all that crazy about your movement anyway. I thought it was kind of like a means to an end. Apparently, it's not even going to get that end. Oops. No more lesser of two evils for me. Iran has fully and completely agreed to nuclear inspections in the future. President Trump says on Tuesday, after Tehran denied making these concessions. Well, this is a real problem. The discrepancy comes out whether or not the vice president has been echoing positive assessments that the mediators, the first round of high-level talks in Switzerland, Washington, and Tehran laid a very good foundation for a successful deal, he says. They desperately need this deal to be real and good. And the Iranians are probably lying. That's the crazy part about it. They're probably lying to us about what's being said and not being said. Because I don't think they want to be part of this very much longer anyway. And yet, their credibility is like, let's say, close to 50-50 with what the White House has been doing because of this. Why would that be? Maybe it's because we can't get what we voted for. And maybe it's because we keep getting lied to on stupid small things. Here's a good example. Tom Massey posted this. What is this? This morning? It was last night, 10:30. The irony of Republicans controlling all branches of government while bankrupting the country, starting a war, sending money to fraudulent programs, violating the Constitution, giving corporations immunity, but arguing that the business problem we have is stolen elections. And guess what? Even if they did, are they fixing the stolen elections? No, they're not. They're not even moving that bit forward. How do you vote your way out of it when the people that you voted for won't do the things that you said? Here's the reason why I think Trump has such a crazy credibility problem. This story continues, and there's some funny little talking head types that are going out and trying to, I don't know, stay on the right side of the Trump administration with this. Donald Trump doubling down on the reflecting pool vandalism claims without providing evidence. Do you guys know this story so far? It's pretty straightforward. The Department of the Interior paid something like $13 to $15 million to try to fix a 6 million gallon reflecting pool that stretches from the Washington Monument down to the Lincoln Memorial. And it's always been full of ducks and duck crap and goose crap or whatever the heck it is. And there's trees all over the place and they drop stuff in and it's greenish and there's algae and whatever else. So Donald Trump did this deal. And the story goes is that it's a no bid contract with a Trump donor who already was in trouble for some other stuff. And they went in and did the repairs. And this has historically been filled with tidal basin water, which is like adjacent to, it's very, very close by. It's coming out of the Potomac, I guess. And that has a bunch of algae and everything else. You know, all the things you'd have in a like sort of wild water source. But they claim that they filled it up with city water and that they painted it blue so that it would be a blue reflecting pool. But of course, it started off, there you have the pictures on the screen, on June 11th. It was dark colored. And then on June the 13th, it was sort of like light green. It went from like dark blue to green to now it's got like this like strip of algae and a bunch of stuff growing in it. Because that's just what happens. And the Trump administration is doing something that's so goofy. They're claiming that vandalism is to blame for this crappy coating that is getting pulled off and floating up on a regular basis. Here's another picture you can see. I think I've actually got a video of, maybe I'll pull this up real quick. I think I've got a video of Scott McFarlane hanging out by the reflecting pool. I'm not 100% sure if I pulled it down. Give me a sec here. I'll take a look. The crazy thing to me is that we're watching people act like they've never seen government contractors do a shitty job. I'm pretty sure that's the entire business model of the federal government. It's like, go out there and hire somebody who has no business doing a job because they're friends of somebody who used to work here, or they know somebody who's making the decision. Looks like I don't have that clip. No big deal. They do this at the FBI all the time. This is a common thing. You work in a government agency and you get this piece of equipment or a piece of software, and it's crap. And you're like, how on earth did we get this garbage? How did somebody build this thing? And then the answer is always the same. Somebody knew somebody. Somebody left this agency, went to go work for the company that ended up getting that contract, and that person got hired specifically because they knew the names of everybody else. Do you think that the senior generals that are leaving the Pentagon, do you think that those people are the most knowledgeable about war? Do you think they're the most knowledgeable about whatever sort of wild things are going on in the world? They think they know the most about technology? No. They just know the guy who's going to be writing the check for the next government contract. So you hire people that retire out of the top end of government because that person is on a first name basis and has a text message relationship with the person that's actually going to sign the contract for tens of millions of dollars later. This is what the MIC is, the military industrial complex. So the claim is that this is vandalism. And Occam's razor will tell us that the odds are is that it's shitty government contract work because there are huge chunks of the liner of this reflecting pool that keep coming up. Hundreds of feet long, like 350 feet long. And Donald Trump thinks someone's sneaking in there and slicing off the lining of this thing they just paid for. What's more likely? Somebody did a shit job of repairing a pool, which happens every day in America. It just turns out this is a really, really visible one. And the president put his reputation on it. Or some like kooky left-wing activists are sneaking in there and trying to cut it down and try to like subvert the president by ripping a bunch of pieces of liner off a concrete pool that's been there for 50 years. It's goofy. It's weird. This story came out over the weekend. A cyclist who was apparently an Olympian. He's a cyclist, but he was an Olympian not in cycling. He was in slalom canoe, which I didn't, or kayak rather, which I didn't know was a thing. But it is, and it looks like it's hard. I don't know why it's an Olympic sport, but whatever. David Hurd finished a loop around Haines Point on Friday, part of a 52-mile bicycle ride. He swung by the Lincoln Memorial to see the refurbished reflecting pool all for himself. He noticed a new piece of the American flag blue liner that was partially detached from the pool bottom. He said he reached into the water to see what it felt like. And then the Bethesda man was preparing to leave, and U.S. Park Police officers ended up arresting him, giving him a misdemeanor charge of destruction of government property. This seems pretty awful. It started a social media flurry as Donald Trump and his allies blamed the pool's overhaul problems on administration opponents. And then you get the activists and these sort of like info operations people like Emily Miller, they describe as a conservative journalist. I think, is Emily Miller the Emily Saves America chick? These people are all fake as far as I can tell. She posted a video on X, shows him being detained. Man arrested for vandalizing the Lincoln reflecting pool. He grabbed onto the hose that a female National Park Service worker was using to clear the algae. Apparently, he may have like bumped it with his bike tire. This gets really silly. And so luckily, we've got silly people from CNN discussing this, and really silly people who are defending things that are ridiculously indefensible. This guy is Jason Rantz. I think he's out of Seattle, if memory serves. He's a radio host. He shows up on CNN all the time. And I think they just cast you in a role when you want to go out there and be on CNN. They're like, okay, your job is to blindly support the president. And then your job is to say retarded things about the Electoral College. Okay, let's go out there and have a good game. Everyone, high fives, handshake, 1, 2, 3, CNN is gay. And then they go out there and then they do these programs. So we've just set up the most goofy thing in the world. There are radical leftists sneaking into the pool when there's video on this all the time. There's actually like cameras that show it on a regular basis. Is there evidence that people are doing this? This is how the Trump administration loses. This is how the Trump administration can make claims that they should, generally speaking, be accepted on. Like the Iranians are full of liars and they've agreed to nuclear inspections. And we would go, oh, well, that makes sense. Yeah, we could see that. And then Iran's like, no, we're not doing that. And you're like, oh, whoa. You've been lying to us about a bunch of other stuff. You've been putting out your talking heads and your sort of defenders, your proxy arguments. So maybe we can't believe anything you say. Maybe you're all liars. Maybe I'm just going to work on my fitness and farming.
Who are picking up the pieces of chipped paint in the reflecting pool.
Two things can be true at once. I'm guessing that there are some people who foolishly decided to pick it out because they saw it floating, thinking they weren't doing any damage. They should not be hit with any vandalism charge.
What's wrong with that? There's actually nothing wrong.
Well, because anyone who's tried to peel off something like wallpaper, you try to peel off just a little bit and then the rest of it comes out. It does more damage.
I'm pretty sure this man has never actually pulled down wallpaper. By the way, do people still have wallpaper? Yeah, a few people do, but nobody's pulling down wallpaper and recognizing that we pulled the entire, sheet off. What happens if you pull wallpaper is you get like 3 inches of it and you were like, crap, I was trying to get all the wallpaper off. I wasn't trying to peel off this one little quarter size. Now I got to pull the whole wall down. Anyway, okay, here we go. Here's the argument. If you touch a little bit of this thing, it all comes off. Do you know how terrible a coating would be on concrete if you touch a little bit of it and it all comes down?
Oh God!
Well, this idea that you're arguing though.
I've never been aware.
You think people are jumping in the pool, wading in there, and picking the thing off the floor?
No, I think In most cases, it's probably someone, I'm saying in most cases, I think it's someone who thinks they're doing the right thing because it's floating and they're trying to clear it. I think those people obviously should not be hit with vandalism charges. I also think it's likely that people are trying to do something intentionally, unless we're supposed to.
You think somebody cut a 300-foot gash?
I think it's likely. Anna, I think it's.
Do you realize how dumb it is that we have to agree with Anna Navarro on this thing? She's actually making a better point than the person that's trying to defend the Trump vandalism claims.
Likely that someone might have committed vandalism, given we just covered a story of 8647 on the lawn. Was that vandalism?
You said
it's, but was that
hold on
vandalism?
a second. You said it's likely.
That someone might commit a crime?
What
vandalism?
What you said likely.
Yeah.
What makes you say that it was likely?
Because we've seen nonstop vandalism against this president and against Republicans for a very long time. Vandalism exists. It exists on both sides. We just saw what was just cut into the lawn. What was just cut into the lawn?
You're not going to try
I'm
to
giving you an example. Literally within the last few days, we had stories about the
vandalism against Republicans. I would love to know the answer to the question.
You don't see graffiti.
So one graffiti is the order.
Yes, there's only folks. There's been one instance of graffiti. That's it.
So you don't keep talking loud, but you don't answer that question because it's not true.
What would it take to
the amount of lying at this table
vandalize to this extent a pool that, according to, if let's just take Trump's favorite analogy, is the size of a skyscraper? What exactly would it take to make that happen?
Well, what would it take to carve 86 into the lawn?
That's not the question she asked you.
Well, what would happen if somebody did some damage to grass? Would that be the same as destroying a pool that has 6 million gallons of water in it? And it's as tall as a skyscraper is? It's as long as a skyscraper is tall? There's a scene in Starship Troopers where the guy is wearing a bow tie, kind of Tucker Carlson-esque figure. And he's like super nerdy. He's not as likable as Tucker, but he's obviously playing a role. And he's arguing with somebody from the other side who's like a black lady who's wearing a men's suit. Okay. I think that's what it goes on. And they're arguing about the relative intelligence of the arachnid threat, which are the alien invader insects that are attacking Earth. And he's like, quite frankly, I find the concept of a smart bug offensive, and then they go back and forth and they argue, ooh, are bugs smart or not smart? And every time I watch it, and it's been a while, but every time I watch CNN and Abby Phillips' show, it's exactly the thing that they were satirizing in that movie that I saw probably when I was in high school. It's just cartoon theater. Like, we're arguing about whether or not somebody could vandalize a pool. Yeah, people could vandalize a pool. What does that have to do with doing something on the White House lawn? Literally nothing. Literally nothing. It's the dumbest version of whataboutism. And your credibility is shot. The credibility is shot because you keep lying about simple, stupid things. And if you tell people false statements about stuff that actually really matters, nobody's going to take you seriously when it should be just a lighthearted thing where it's like, we should be able to accept that our country is getting a deal in Switzerland with this goofy Iranian regime. And instead, we're like, they might be telling us the truth. They're literally lying about everything else. Here's a great example of it. Here's my favorite punching bag. FBI Director Kash Patel. There's a Fox News story. Shocker, guys, Fox News. The FBI brings back a second fugitive accused of $3.7 billion in Medicare fraud. Let me go to the headline because we're not going to cover the whole story because it's stupid. Kash Patel says, I told you we will find you. Period. DKP. Let that sink in for a second. The director of the FBI, who is a meme, like maybe the most Indian man in America. He probably should be wearing headphones, leaning on his horn, confused about why it makes a noise. DPK stands for Director Kash Patel. And that's how he's signing it. And he's signing it because Donald Trump sometimes signs his stuff DJT, Donald J. Trump. But Kash Patel doesn't want to put all of his initials in one place because all of his initials would make it obvious that he's like a real Indian named guy. So you have that. Here's the FBI rapid response, which I assume is run by either Kash Patel or one of his buddies. And they wrote, got another one, American flag. This is Fox News headline. FBI brings back fugitive accused in $3.7 billion Medicare fraud scheme after capture in Turkey. So you'd read that and you would think, oh, did the FBI go to Turkey and get this guy? No. Did the FBI, which is required to look into things like Medicare fraud, allow somebody to steal almost $4 billion from the American people and defraud them from this kind of money? A shocking amount of money. Yeah, they did. And they're celebrating getting him back. And what are they celebrating? That the Turkish government took hold of him, captured him, and then held on to him, and then handed him over to CERG, the Critical Incident Response Group. So the FBI retrieved somebody that stole almost $4 billion. Did we get the money back? And they're acting like this is a big success. Just saying. And then they went and they look at this. This is my favorite. They have like a money shot here of bringing him back. He's in scrubs. You have like an overweight female. I don't know what her story is. You got some dude who's probably been working on that case forever, Medicare fraud investigator. He's probably the only one here that actually had anything to do with anything. Maybe not. Who knows? Maybe he was just a guy that went on the plane. Then you got like some random minority dude. No idea what his story is, but he's off in the corner wearing a t-shirt. And they all put on FBI raid jackets, which, by the way, they've gone back to the OG raid jackets. They're not wearing the ones like Kash was wearing at the Charlie Kirk assassination, the 511 ones, like I was issued, which are garbage, by the way. They're going back to the OG raid coats because they're trying to like grab some vintage heritage FBI sort of whatever mentality. And there's the private jet. So we sent the FBI, one of the FBI's private jets, to go retrieve a guy who stole almost $4 billion from us. And the Turkish people, the Turkish government, captured him. But that's how I know we're back, baby. It's embarrassing. It should be embarrassing for all of you guys. All right, real quickly before we kind of do a different segment here and kind of move around a little bit, I want to show you this. I saw this first thing this morning when I was opening up and looking around. Blaze Media is covering this, and it's going to segue nicely into our little talk with Skip Holtz. A brute force attack just hit a popular password management app. Here's how to stay safe going forward. I'll include this in the links along with some of the other cyber stuff that's going on. There's a couple of cyber threats that I think are interesting. Skip comes on. He's one of our advertisers, and then he also is somebody who pays attention to the cyber threat world, which is really not my bag. This happened to show up in my feed this morning when I was looking at it, and it's like, oh yeah, this stuff is going on. So whether you're using password apps or whether you're getting hacked or whatever else, email addresses, bank accounts, social media profiles, people like put all their stuff into these password apps, and then you expect them to be safe. I actually was doing that for a little while too. And then I realized that my password app, they stopped supporting it. And so it just no longer works anymore. So all my stuff is in this vault that I can't decrypt. I can't even open the damn thing up anymore. And there's no more support for it. So that's another thing that could happen. Either somebody could hack it or it could just stop being supported. In any case, these are stories that are happening in the world. So we'll kind of cover those in just a second here. All right. Rumble, if you're watching, give us a like. YouTube, if you're watching, give us a like. Same thing. Subscribe both places. You'll hear an ad maybe on the audio platforms. If you do, it comes from the folks over at Spotify at KyleSeraphinShow.com. If you hear the audio ads, they may pop in right about now. And I got to leave that little break in the segment here. All right. So let's go ahead and move over. We're going to talk to Skip, and let's talk about the things that we can control and the things we can't. Little segment that we do on a pretty regular basis. All right, folks, it's time for one of the segments we do on a regular basis with Skip Holtz. He is the co-founder of Patriot Protect, and they are one of our sponsors. So I bring him on kind of in another capacity. I don't know about you guys, but I kind of like knowing who I'm doing business with. And one of the nice things we can do is kind of do a quick little profile or kind of just mix it up. So you kind of know if you're spending money with any of our sponsors, who they are as human beings. And Skip's on the line with me right now. He's joining me audio only, or maybe he's sitting in a darkened hotel room with a hoodie on the way I saw him last time. Can you confirm or deny that?
Yeah, no, I'm sitting extremely still. And that's one of my things that I like. It's like one of those street performers in Times Square that you give a buck to in front of. And so I got a lot of talents.
Yeah. Do you spray paint your body all dark, or how does that work then?
It has no effect on how I actually sit, but I just like it. You get the fumes going. What's wrong with that?
What's wrong with that? What's wrong with you is the question.
I've got notes.
So we were talking kind of offline before we got started, kind of discussing you're growing a garden.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's so important. I mean, manipulating the earth and giving yourself, and your family food it's really incredible. And localizing things. We talk all the time about just in general, our economy, the world economy, the American economy, and the centralization of things. And the reality is that the centralization of a lot of our industries, that is to say, under monopolistic competition, things get more expensive, ironically. When scale is increased. And so that's just, anytime we try to decentralize things, whether that's, our food supply chain, whether that's our communication by using things like MeshCore or Meshtastic or something, things that, decentralize communication and are free, instead of going through a monopoly like, AT&T or whatever. These are things that we care about.
Skip, I had a funny conversation with somebody last night about Nextel. Do you remember the Nextel push-to-talks?
Yeah, of course, little chirps.
And they were so functional for guys in construction, and they were really kind of a godsend for people that did the work that I used to do in surveillance. So we'd sit out there and be able to instantly connect without having to dial up and not necessarily have to go over the radio key up. It looks a little bit more natural sometimes to queue up on a cell phone. And so we had these Nextel devices, and we would go out there and do that. And I was telling my buddy, I was like, I really like those. And a friend of mine was telling me that he's using them in his business now, something very similar, this kind of nationwide radio system. And he said, I had some problems with it. And I brought it up to one of my FBI buddies, and he was like, oh yeah, those were great. We had to stop using them. Israeli company owned it. And they hacked all of it, and they handed everything over to the Mossad.
see what happens when we centralize our stuff is, nothing's safe.
It just kills me. And I was like, you can't make this stuff up. It's like, what a great thing to remember, that I didn't even know that the Israelis decided, like, well, that was useful. I was like, first pagers, and then they ruined Nextel, doggone it.
Exactly.
Nobody wants either of those devices. We were kind of talking about doing gardening, though. I don't know if you've heard this, but one of the things people always ask me, like, what can we do? How can we fix our own versions of problems? And the answer is most problems are actually way too big for you to solve. They're bigger at government. They're, as you said, scale, and they're so far outside of our reach. So I always kind of tell people locally the things they can handle. And you can handle things like your own faith in God. You can handle your own love for your family. You can work on your own fitness. You can own firearms and get proficient at them. And then the last one we've kind of worked in is farming. You can grow your own food and kind of maintain that sort of stuff.
Yes.
Those are all within your general parameters to be able to just do. And you don't have to ask anybody's permission. I had a guest on a while ago who said, you can just do things. You have agency, and so you're allowed to. But you can't change things that are bigger than yourself. Anyway, it reminded me about that.
Firstly, that's my reminder that I have to take my creatine today, so I appreciate that.
Nice.
5 grams. It's the right little amount, and you get that extra little reps in. And then also, yes, these problems that we face are so big and superliminal. It's hard to even it's overwhelming, and it can actually arrest your will to do something. And you're 100% right, is that when things go bad, we see this in natural disasters. I remember this with Hurricane Harvey and stuff. When things go bad, our natural inclination as people, as humans, is to gather around with the people around us and try to help each other. And so that's not to be understated. I always question when people say humans are naturally greedy. I'm like, show me where that is the case when it's person to person, though, in a community. I think,
right.
when we're talking about these big companies and stuff like that, yes, of course. But when it comes down to it, it's good stuff.
The thing that will help people always remember that is Elon Musk is our world's first trillionaire, and he did it on a technology company, and now he's worth more than any person's ever been worth in the history of the world, as far as I can tell. And he can't fix all the problems, even if he wanted to. And he actually got a spot in our federal government in America, and it resulted in him going away and kind of shaking, kind of hanging his head, going, "This is so jacked up. I can't fix anything. Like, they're not going to let me do it."
If you've worked with data before, and if you were designing something, if you were an engineer and you were looking at output and results. Mm-hmm. And you were looking at a bell curve or something like that, or something, and you saw a tail in the economy that produced, people that make the, American, average wage, which is 50 something grand a year or something. Mm-hmm. And then you saw one that was 1 trillion. You would say, hang on, something's not working. Hang on, something must be wrong. This surely either is a measurement error, or there's something so messed up with what I built that I couldn't possibly use this. And
yeah, it's a tremendous outlier for sure. And you know what's funny is like it's such an outlier that it's negligible. We can just forget about it. I mean, in any other kind of system, you'd cut off the tails. You work within 2 standard deviations. So the top 2.5%, the bottom 2.5%, 2%. We're going to ignore that. That's like not useful data. That doesn't show anything of substance. Anyway, I make a lot of those arguments on a regular basis. We'll jump into a little bit more substance here, and a substance being the other thing. I should put another F in my 5 Fs, and maybe the other one is funny, which is if we could just have a little bit of sense of humor about a lot of this stuff, we would be okay.
100%.
We'll do a little bit of substance, but we're going to start by dropping kind of a little dunk on my former employer. This is the special agent in charge of the Mission Support Division of the New York Field Office. This is going to segue into what you and I will be talking about in a second. But first, let's just see a guy who happens to share almost the exact same name as the director of the FBI, and that's funny to me just in and of itself.
Hello, I'm Amit Patel, Special Agent in charge of FBI New York's Mission Services Division. The government has established temporary flight restrictions around World Cup stadiums, fan festivals, and other event locations, including...
All right, that's enough of that. What is your first reaction to hear that?
Well, I appreciate that, in his capacity of, in the cyber branch, that he's keeping an eye on things is important. I think.
Yes, and he's keeping one eye on those things and another eye on something else, it turns out. This guy. So the funny thing was, the first thing you said when I shared with you we were going to talk about this guy, just kind of in passing, is that you thought that was AI.
The first thing I thought when I saw that was like, oh, this is AI generated or something. It's too uncanny.
It's really, really mechanical and robotic. I actually accused Google Gemini of something, and then it responded back, I don't do that. And I said, why do you say I when in fact you're just an algorithm in a program? And it responded that it would sound robotic and rigid. And I was like, there's plenty of people that sound like that. They're called software engineers a lot of times. Apparently they work for the FBI. Who knew?
Correct.
So this guy, this is why this is kind of segues into what you do and what we sometimes talk about here. This is part of my life experience, but it says the background on this guy going back to March of 25. Since 2022, this is from the official Cyber Summit, which is a thing he speaks at on a regular basis, I guess. It says Mr. Patel, can't make that up, has 20 years of experience as an FBI agent, having worked counterintelligence, insider threat, and cyber matters, which is a thing the FBI does. As a frontline investigator program manager, which means that they just collect a paycheck talking about other people's work at headquarters. He managed some of the largest cyber incidents, to include the Sony Pictures destructive malware attack, the OPM and the Anthem hacks. And it made me kind of remind myself once again that even though I don't think of myself as a victim, when I worked for the FBI, they took all my information, literally every place I'd ever lived, every email address I ever had, every address, every person that I knew in those places, every job that I worked at, every phone number or whatever sort of personal identifier, put them all into a database at OPM in what's called an SF50. Is that what it's called? No, an SF88. And then they got hacked, I think, by the Chinese. Was that what OPM was? It went to China?
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
And so, so the Chinese got access to like everything that the FBI would need to be able to adjudicate me for a top secret clearance.
I mean, the FBI loves getting hacked above all else. This year, their informant database was hacked. I mean, again, the people that are like very close to death and, if with one slip up and now, all the information is public. Wasn't Sony Pictures, wasn't that North Korea? Wasn't that like the famous one with North Korea? Because they made
I believe it was, yeah. But I can't remember what the story was.
Wasn't that the film with James Franco and Seth Rogen? They like made that. And they were like, screw that. Like, we're going to go after Sony Pictures. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. It was a while ago.
That is exactly right. Yeah, they got jammed up because they were going to release something that pointed out, like, it was a hysterical movie, by the way.
It was.
And I think they did a really good job with it. But yeah, they upset the North Koreans, which got them hacked. And I guess the FBI did. Like, I never know what the FBI's role in that is, other than they're working on it.
Aside from getting hacked themselves, I mean, they there's nothing that happens. All this is just after the fact stuff. It's never preventative, which is exactly why this is what what we do at Patriot Protect all day, every day, is being proactive rather than reactive.
Do you want to do just a quick recap on how you got into that business? I know I've heard it. It's been a while. We get new audience every month, and so just a quick. How did you end up in cybersecurity? Why do you do what you do?
I've been working with data for my entire career, and like a lot of things, and especially a lot of people that become business owners, it's like, how can I take my my hobby, my passion, and make it what I do every day. And privacy and security has been something that I've been passionate about for decades, and as has been the case for my co-founder James. And so that's, how we got together, is that we were both data analysts, and this is something that we were very passionate about. And so we said, like, let's take a look at a really good hard look at all of our attack surface. That is to say, in our business, it is to say, what are the tangible places that scammers, cyber criminals, stalkers, whatever bad actor can get information on you. And so, like we were talking about before, these industries that exploit us, one of the biggest ones is the data broker industry. Mm-hmm. I mean, I have a lot to say that I could go on forever about, the different ways we're being surveilled. Flock surveillance being one of the things that is just is being put up all over the United States to surveil us with our voice, the tire pressure monitor sensors in our cars that you drive by. It picks up that signal and then creates a fingerprint for your individual vehicle. It's just and can track you across the United States. It's just horrible stuff. And really so is. The amount of digital data that you are giving off more so every day can be used and weaponized to harm you. And that's a couple of the stories that I wanted to talk about today, talk about that specifically, which is, how is this being weaponized, and who are the companies that you can trust, basically. And the answer that James and I came to all that time ago was just reduction in the overall amount of data out there on you is the answer majority of the time.
Just reduced exposure.
Yeah, I mean, you lock your door so that people can't come in and see which room you're in, right? I mean, you put a passcode on your phone so that people can't see the information. It is
people are now doing privacy screens on their phones so that you can't, do what they used to call social engineering, looking over a shoulder and seeing things that you're up to.
Exactly. I mean, I see people even just like walking around, with their company badge, like on a lanyard, for instance.
Oh, it drives me nuts.
It's like, what are you doing now? Just from that one moment, if somebody saw you in a Walmart or whatever, you're on your lunch break or something, and they see your name, your full government name, and your company you work for, that's such a leg in. I mean, even just somebody could social engineer you from that and be like, "Hey, Bill, I haven't seen you in a while." And it's like, oh, I guess I know this person.
And if they do it really well, what they'll do is they'll take that information, hold on to it, and then bump you later on, maybe the next day, because they track you down or something to that effect.
Exactly.
I mean, it's a really good open source and sort of crowd intelligence tactic. I used to laugh because I end up in these trade shows in Las Vegas. I do at least one a year, sometimes 2 a year. I'm going to go to another one. And the thing that always drove me nuts is people who wear their conference badge out to the restaurant or bar right afterwards. I can't wait to put the damn thing away and put it in my backpack. I actually have a pocket in my backpack that is for badge of the day, so I can hide it behind there. And maybe that's just the military guy in me that remembers, just limit your OPSEC exposures.
Yes.
But people love walking around letting them know, like, yeah, I'm here for the freaking concrete conference. It's like, cool, man. Everyone knows what you're about. If they want to come and do something to you, they're going to come up and be your friend, and they're going to talk about concrete, and they're going to be like, how'd you know?
Yeah, I mean, look, I was never in the FBI, and I have like these little rituals of things that I do to make sure that, like, that this basic information isn't exposed. Because why would you have it out there? If I get a car, like, the first thing that I do is take the dealership plates off of it, just because I don't want people to be able to see, that sort of stuff. It's just I thought, 20 years ago, people were like, I don't know, man, this guy is a little weird.
Yeah, you end up being prophetic like that. People probably thought Ted Kaczynski was weird. Go read his manifesto today, and he's right.
Yeah, it's in the New York Times.
He was a little weird. To be fair, he was a little weird. Or maybe more than a little.
But this is the case, is that I got ahead of all this stuff, and one of the best gifts I gave myself was to reduce my attack surface all those years ago, before we even knew what Meta and foreign actors are doing with this information. Cyber criminals like shiny hunters, like I'm sure we're about to discuss.
All right, so we're going to talk about 3 stories. One of them is the Aurora data breach. We're going to talk about the Better Business Bureau warnings and the idea of AI voice scamming. I've heard people do voice scamming as a general rule. I haven't. The AI thing actually makes it terrifying, but people would actually just come in and pretend to be someone that knows someone. I was looking at the visual for this particular article, and this is coming from Norton, it looks like.
Yeah.
And the visual is this thing that we're seeing on the screen. So people who are just watching or who are just listening, you're not seeing this. But I thought it was like a twisted hair of data that was like running the seam. And I was like, what in the actual, what are the hairs? No, these are cracks in the wall, which is kind of a good look. I was like, what on the earth am I looking at here? I've looked at it for probably 3 minutes straight to figure out what the heck I was looking at. Cracks in the wall, sort of, seeping ways to get into your protective, like you say, your limited attack surface. This is your openings. These are the fissures. What's the story here with the Aurora data breach?
Yeah, firstly, this is the most AI generated image I've ever seen in my life.
It's really good. I mean, it was engrossing. Bad. Yeah.
But it's just like, you start to look at it, like, wait, this guy is maybe putting graphs and also personal effects of their grandparents' letters in the same. Anyway,
inside the wall, what's going on?
Yeah.
Like, who keeps that crap in the wall?
You start to interrogate it, and you're like, hey, this doesn't work.
That's right.
Yeah. So look, Aura is a identity theft protection service. The irony is not lost on us.
That's very funny.
And this is, as we talk about a lot, and I'm sure like in the last 6 months, anytime that I come on your program, I usually have a story that revolves around Shiny Hunters, which is a cyber criminal syndicate. There's kind of no other way to say it.
Where are they out of?
Everywhere. Okay. They've been known to be everywhere. Europe, America, Russia. So they're, they operate from, these are probably pretty isolated people that, work off of computers, and they, most of them probably don't even know each other's real names is the reality, but they've got this business model going where they can do social engineering. That's the thing that people need to understand about this, is that, as was the case with this, as with many of their breaches.
Look at that. Yeah, the third sentence, I'm just seeing it. It's like, of course, that's what it is. It's always people.
Yes, that's the thing, is that they're not doing it because they're these perfect hackers that can crack encryption and stuff like that. No.
Can we put a hold on that for 1 second so people can imagine? These are likely not, but we would like to believe they're very attractive women with like shapely figures and bosoms, and they are men who are wearing like wife beaters with like rippling muscles, kind of sweaty, and they're typing away with their perfectly shaved head and like good features. You don't think that's what these guys are? These are not like really attractive men and women who are dominating the cyber industry, like, I don't know, like Swordfish or something?
Yeah,
it's not Halle Berry.
To be clear, I make sure to wear the hoodies so that nobody sees my rippling muscles, which is why I have the creatine, obviously.
That checks.
No, these are like, who knows with these guys? I mean, who knows what they're.
They probably look more like Kasha Patel, and they probably might have like a wandering. They might be keeping an eye on more thing at once.
Well, you got to move your monitor to one side of your desk is the important thing.
Yeah, put it over here.
These guys, it's not that they're doing, cracking encryption or whatever. They're socially engineering the employees of these companies, and they can use AI cloning or voice cloning, like we'll talk about in a second, to call in and pretend that they're somebody's boss because they found their information on LinkedIn or a data broker that Patriot Protect takes you off of, and says like, hey, what was the password for that main file again? And it sounds like your boss. So what are you going to do? Say no? And like, that was weird. And you get off the phone. You're like, that was weird that he called me from that number. I didn't recognize it, but it sounded like him. So, oh, well. And then, that's how they get in. They find this piece of attack surface that was exposed, which is to say, somebody that didn't know any better, because they, Aura has thousands of employees or whatever. And this is how it happens. And as a result, it sounded like 900,000 records, 35,000 current and former customers had their information exposed. Yeah. So and again, the irony is that this is a company that's I mean, there might be Aura customers listening right now, or LifeLock. These are these companies that only clean up things after the fact of your attack surface having been breached.
That's what the FBI offered me. They said that they would give me a 3-year subscription to LifeLock.
And what does that do?
When they gave away all my data, that was probably 80-something pages of detailed information about my entire life history. That was really nice of them.
Yeah, and now there's a Chinese agent that's looking at this, like, this Kyle guy. I don't know. He's like, He's got a nice garden.
He's really handsome, but
it's handsome. He's cool. I mean, he might be listening right now.
Yeah, I'd like to befriend this man, this Seraphin man. He seems like he's just a plain-spoken guy with upper management written all over him. Early reports indicate that the breach is primarily exposing basic contact information of 900,000 people, to include email addresses, so that can be tied to other stuff. A smaller group lost everything. 20,000 current customers and 15,000 former. Detailed contract information, which they're not going to say, including home addresses, phone numbers. I'm sure there's other stuff in there as well. God forbid there be social security numbers and things that they can actually really create. And again, the opening was a voice hack. I'm going to go out here and just read from the story real quickly. By the way, the most amusing thing about the skip is that at the bottom of this page from Norton, it says, install Norton 360 with LifeLock.
Exactly. So it's like,
they're like,
guys,
look.
Again, that's, why what we do is so different, which is, making sure that we take you off of these attack surfaces, because the whole point is to reduce the amount of stuff that's out there in the beginning.
This is so good.
It's
All right, so
simple as it can be.
Let's read this thing real quickly. And I just want to put this on big print for those who are watching on a phone or something. The breach reportedly occurred after an Aura employee fell victim to a voice phishing attack. That will be the first time that I've heard those words, voice phishing. This is coming out now as a kind of a thing. Better Business Bureau is making alerts about it. So let's talk about what that was. And then I'm going to see if I can suggest how I think it could happen. And then everybody's going to realize that they're all vulnerable to it. So that's fun. Okay, go ahead. What is the Better Business Bureau scam concern?
Yeah, so it's just good awareness material, which is to say, voice phishing attacks being powered by AI. Cyber criminals can take a small sample of your voice, which could be you getting a spam phone call and saying, hello, who is this? And then it hangs up. That could be enough of a sample to mimic your voice.
Or even pulling off your voicemail, I guess.
Totally. That's why I don't have a custom voicemail. I just have it be my phone number. Right. That's the reason why you do it. Yes. So totally agree. Even in if it's a long one too, and you're like, hey, this is Kyle Seraphin. I'm not here right now. This is blah, blah, blah.
No, I have a whole thing.
But that's a lot of vowels and consonants and word shapes that they can pull from. Right. So
I actually put this on the screen because I went looking for a AI voice cloning graphic. And so for people who can see this, whenever you look at the sort of the visual representation of the audio, there's a lot of different striations that happen in these waveforms. And I know audio engineers who have told me that they can literally look at some waveforms and know what the word is because they're so familiar with working in the space 20 years in. There's no question in my mind that, you give them enough phrases together, syllables that they can string, it can actually project what you would be saying.
It's so fascinating, and I'm so glad that you gave that explanation because this is exactly how it works. And, with AI, these cyber criminals can reduce that 20 years of experience to just a tool that they can pay $20 a month for.
Which is crazy. You can actually get cloning programs right now, like you, the person who's listening to this, anybody that's out there, if you want to do this, your ability to go out and get a Morgan Freeman voice clone. And they're very good because especially people with distinctive voices, quite easy to do. But it turns out we all kind of have a distinctive voice. That's why you pick up the phone and you know it's your mom, or you know it's your dad, or you know it's your brother, or you know it's your boss, or you know it's Skip. You don't have to even see the hoodie. You can just know, I know this guy.
So that's the point, is that in that other article that I sent you about this AI voice cloning scams on the rise, it was this heartbreaking story. And I'll read it for 2 seconds. It says, imagine answering the phone and hearing desperate pleas for help from someone who sounds just like a loved one, only to discover later it was all part of a terrifying scam. That's exactly what happened to Deborah Del Mastro, a California mother. So basically what happened was she got a man's voice telling her on a phone call saying that there's a man's voice saying, I've got your 37-year-old daughter. She's been kidnapped by a Mexican cartel and demanded $20,000 for the release. And then she hears her daughter's voice pleading for help. She said it sounded just like her, but it wasn't her daughter. Instead, scammers had used artificial intelligence to mimic her daughter's voice, a tactic known as an AI voice cloning scam.
So this is a sophisticated version of what used to be called, and probably still is called, virtual kidnapping.
Yes.
And so the way this worked, and I've had these cases when I was an FBI agent, we saw them on the reservation. They'd wait until somebody drove into a place where they're going to be off cell phone contact, or they knew they were going to be unavailable. Maybe they get on an airplane. So somebody that's kind of keeping track of you, and you can find that on social media sometimes. Oh, I'm about to fly. I see people social media influencers all the time. They take a picture of their feet and they're like, ask me anything. I'm going to be in the air for like whatever. And like, now you're out of voice reach. And so now you're open to this thing called virtual kidnapping. And basically the claim is that I've kidnapped somebody that I don't actually have. And I make sure that you just can't get access to that person so that you can have a panic moment. And I just need you to be panicked long enough to send me 20 grand or 15,000 or $785 or whatever the hell weird thing that they say. I don't have 20,000. I got 700. And they're like, yeah, we'll take it, whatever. Like these people are doing a numbers game. So for whatever it's worth, this has been going on, but this is a new level to that, which is scary.
Firstly, I delighted in everything that you just explained, because it's exactly true and it's exactly how it works. And in the case of this, this one case, she forked over $5,000 because it says that's all she
didn't
at the
have
moment.
the 20, right? They'll ask for a big number, but not something too big that regular people may not have it. Maybe you have 20 grand laying around, but you might not have that.
You're right. They would have
4,000.
taken $500.
100%. Yeah, these people would take whatever it is, and then they'd be like, "Yeah, we're not gonna have to think about it, whatever." And then they take the money and they run. And they're in India. They don't care. Or Nigeria, or whatever.
So the question to the listeners is, where to test their knowledge, where, if they got the AI clone of the daughter's voice from Instagram or whatever, from anywhere, where did they know who her mom was, and where did they get the mother's number? They get them from the data brokers. They get them from these public data broker sites that publish your information. Like White Pages, True People Search, been verified, Yellow Pages. And
there was one
know
called something like familytree.org or something that the Chinese were leaking. Is that one of them?
Tree Search? Yeah.
Oh man, they got all the OPM hack data and it all showed up there for a long time. And it was like, oh, this sucks. Cause especially if you're working in law enforcement, now that I have a more public face than everybody. The only upside is I work from home. So if anybody called to pretend to be me, you'd have a hard time convincing my wife because I'm upstairs.
Exactly.
But yeah, for those of you that do anything on social media, anybody that's doing voice calls, if you're doing any kind of forward-facing interviews where you might give a statement to the news media at some point in time, if you're the voice on the other end of the telephone, you identify yourself on your voicemail at work. I mean, take your pick.
It's all usable data.
Mm-hmm.
So look, I mean, the point is that, all of this information is available, and you ask yourself, okay, so like tying into what we said earlier, it's like, this problem seems so big. What can I do about it? What can I do to set myself apart? And the answer is make yourself a much higher cost target such that cyber criminals will not bother with you. And the answer is to take yourself off of this publicly available information. And so that's what we do with Patriot Protect. There's no other more effective solution that we have found, especially when you consider how relatively inexpensive it is. It is not free, but it's about $5 a month. I mean, really, it's such an important step to take for anybody that has anything to lose or any interest in their own privacy.
I feel like you and I have talked about it previously. Maybe the average amount of money that people lose over a period of their lifetime kind of deal. I cited it before, but I don't have hard numbers on it. I know that's your purview, not mine. What's
statistics
your instinct
vary. Some people say $7,000. Some people say $14,000. The reality is, I think last year it was something like $443 billion lost to scams from American consumers. That's just that's a number that's insane. It's hard to even understand.
Yeah, those aren't real numbers that human beings can calculate into oh, that's what it makes sense. This one's saying right here, FBI says Americans lost more than 893 million in just AI scams alone last year.
Exactly. And then there's good old fashioned, just scams saying, hey, buy me iTunes gift cards or whatever. There's a million different things. So
I always like the idea of paying off problems in a gift card. I'm going to pay the attorney general fee in the gift card. That was it works,
sad,
though.
but the social engineering, when you put the pressure on and you take somebody's prefrontal cortex offline by putting them back in their panic state, so they're not thinking clearly and they're just thinking kind of twitchily. They need to know how to resolve this issue, and you get somebody that hasn't taken action on this and safeguarded themselves, and they know they've thought about this before. And here you go.
Yeah, and I can even just imagine right now. So before we were talking, I was rushing out and I had to go do like a quick little lawn mow in the front. So maybe I'm doing that. I know I'm under a time crunch. I get some sort of message. It comes in. It sounds like my wife's voice. Hey, the debit card's not working, whatever it may be. Can you click authorize through this link? I'm going to send, they're sending a text message from the company. And you're like, okay, yeah, whatever. I got to do something. I don't have time for this, hon. And then you do. And then you're like, oh, oops.
There it goes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's never going to be the moment that you're sitting at home, very calm, cool, collected, and thinking someone's trying to steal from me. Like, that's just not how these people ever hit you. And whenever you talk to anybody that's been a victim of scams, they're not dumb people. It's all the time. I mean, I talked to a guy who bought something like what he claimed was $250,000 worth of coins from someone he'd never met before. And the coins ended up being worth about 10 grand. So that's an awful lot of money to lose. And he's like, what can I do? And I'm like, you overpaid for an asset that you physically got. You didn't even, it's not even a violation of law. You just made a bad decision. I'm really sorry. Yeah. You just lost almost $250,000. And there's literally nothing we can do. And the guy had a beautiful house, and the house was like north of $1 million. I mean, he had money and he was not dumb. And they just ripped a huge chunk out of his pocket. And it was, that was a big deal. It was a big deal to him. He wasn't worth Elon Musk money. So, smart people all the time get taken in with this crazy stuff. And the AI voice thing is really, it's really spooky. Unsettling. As a guy who now works with audio and being able to, I can manipulate, I'm the world's okayest audio and video editor, and I can manipulate people to sound like they're saying things that they shouldn't be. Having a machine behind that can round all the words together and cut out the weird pauses. I mean, for all we know, this guy, this FBI guy sounds like he's AI. He sounds fake and robotic.
Exactly.
Real robots now sound better than some robotic humans.
Exactly.
It's craziness. All right. Well, as we've said a couple times, you're one of our sponsors. You pop in here in kind of like an alternative role here to provide information, which I always appreciate. And we don't do infomercials, which is kind of fun. And I always remind people that it's like, I don't know. I like talking to you because we end up at least making one good movie reference.
Yes,
minimum.
Exactly correct. What did we get in earlier? What was this?
It just
we had
went
a good one early.
We did. And I thought about it when I said it, and then I forgot it. What I was thinking is before we actually jumped on, I was thinking that at some point we need to figure out war games. We need to get a war games reference in.
What a great one.
It's one of the classics. And I know that there's some fun stuff that will play into the cyber. If only that was the real threat we were worried about. Everybody thought that we were going to worry about the world ending because some computer system decided to take us all out. And in reality, it's just going to be like some sweaty, creepy guy who can't bench press the bar. He's going to take all your money by pretending to be your mom.
It's true though. I mean, so look, I appreciate the, I always appreciate coming on, and we always come bearing a few gifts. So we made sure to make code Kyle, Kyle, worth 30% off our annual plans. And cool. By the way, too, we've our Total Recon product now includes dark web monitoring, as well as taking you off of all of these sites. So it's you go into your portal, you see everything that you've been taken off of, and then you get a monthly report of what has been published on you on the dark web. So all these breaches and stuff, you get ahead of them before these companies elect to tell you whether or not you've been breached.
That's actually really, that'd probably be really unsettling to find out who's out there selling and trading in your data. But I like the idea of that. The other thing is it's kind of fire and forget, because I don't think a lot of people want to be, if you're not already a data cyber type guy, you're probably not trying to be one. So this kind of makes it simpler. And again, every single thing that I see, all these pieces are like, what happens after you've been screwed over? They all have the same sort of thing. It's like, install our thing, install our debug, install our LifeLock, and we'll try to keep track of your data now that it's been compromised. It's the exact opposite. So it's the ounce of prevention, pound of cure kind of scenario.
Exactly. Best to be proactive.
I had another funny thought in there, and it's escaped me, but it'll occur to me right after we stop talking about it. And we'll do the promo code KYLE so people can do that. If you guys are so inclined. Also, I know what I was going to say. It's always nice hearing the voice behind it. I've had a number of people tell me that they had customer service issues with your company, and then they were all really amicably resolved, and they've all posted over on our locals page, which I like finding out. Because just because I have a good experience with the company doesn't mean everybody necessarily does. And I haven't found one that hasn't been taken care of the way that it was meant to. Some people said it took a couple of days, but you know, we all have an unrealistic expectation, I think, of like how important our problem is compared to the grand scheme of things, especially when we're talking about a couple bucks a month. At the end of the day, it's like, hey, maybe they mischarge you. They figured it out. And of course, that's always come up. So
we always take care. And again, you know, out of all the companies, we're 100% USA based.
Minimal. Yeah, I was going to make it's probably not an appropriate joke in your industry to make jokes about it. I found people got canceled about making jokes. You can't talk about overseas work. You can't just call them all Patels is what I found out, Skip. That's what I was trying to say. You can't call them all Patels. They're not all Patels. Some of them have other names. Just leave it. Just quiet. This is exactly right. You don't need to answer that. All right. I appreciate you jumping on. We'll do it again soon. He was right not to answer that. By the way, you guys are all correct in the chat. I noticed people calling out the movie references. Yes, the interview was a good one. Also, I made an Office Space reference in there at one point. If you're liking what you're hearing, make sure you guys support us on Rumble, support us on YouTube, give us a like, subscribe to the channels. And then for those of you that just in general want to support what we're up to, check out our sponsors. They're all really great. They're good people doing good things. And there's a thank you. There's a link that goes to all of them. If you haven't seen it already, Patriot Protect obviously is the first link you'll see today. And then you'll see the others for people like Silent and Undertack and Secure It and Shield Arms and others and so on. So just go ahead and check on that if you're so inclined. It's over at KyleSerafinshow.com. No, sorry. It's at KyleSeraphin.com. That's going to be, I really should try to centralize this and just give you one place to go. I'll probably create like a link tree out of this thing. Anyhow, you can scan the QR code that you see on the screen right now if you are so inclined, and it'll get you rocking. I got a little bit more to do because we were off yesterday and we got some things to say. So if that's all right with you guys, I'd like to get a little bit deeper into the weeds on the sort of what it could look like thing. This is why I don't think we vote our way out of this. And more importantly, this is why there was a swordfish reference, right? There's an issue with trying to go the other direction, trying to take it to the political left. I don't think they solved the problem. The Brits actually tried this. So this story, there's actually two stories. I think I'll start with the Axios. And it's a really good picture. By the way, Axios does a really nice job of getting cover art. For whatever it's worth, I'm not a huge fan of Axios as a general rule. Britain's Lost Decade, written by Zachary Basu. On June the 23rd, 2016. So that's 10 years ago today. The Brexit referendum unleashed a populist tide that rewrote the rules of Western politics. 10 years later, exactly 10 years later, a diminished and fractured UK is preparing for its seventh prime minister, still haunted by the future that it was promised. Now, they have a parliamentary system, so they're a little different than we are. They don't do regular votes. They have they have the ability to come and go, and it's representative of the party, and the party has to have either the majority or they have like a coalition of people that will allow them to put forward their prime minister that's going to step in. So they're not quite the same as we are when it comes to changing leadership. If you can imagine, in 10 years, having 7 different people hold the helm, and this is what's going to be coming up in the next little bit as they look for a new guy. Now, Keir Starmer was elected as a competent, level-headed antidote to 14 years of conservative rule. This is the sort of left-wing claim. He was a member of their Labour Party, which is sort of like their left-wing, their sort of Democrat-style party. The period consumed by austerity, ideological warfare, and the chaos of leaving the European Union is the claim. He was going to be competent. He was going to be level-headed. He actually kind of reminds me of my buddy's dad as far as the way that he looks, who was always a competent, level-headed CPA. You know, like a guy who just makes good decisions. And then what really happened? Massive failure, overrun by all the same problems. You don't get anything different when you have people who've been involved in government for the longest time stepping in. They're not going to change the course of the super tanker that is the government that you have, because it's still staffed by all the same people. His resignation, which happened yesterday, less than 2 years after the historic Labour landslide. So the British population theoretically voted aggressively to get rid of the previous 14 years. And you got this guy. And what happens? They said it's part of Britain's chronic instability. It's partisan. It's outgrown the partisan explanation. And isn't that kind of what Tucker Carlson was saying? And isn't that what Tim Dillon was saying? And isn't that kind of where we're at when you start thinking, is there a possibility that We just need the right people. I don't think so. I think the system now is so stuck in a rut, and it's so deliberate in its course that there's not an easy pullout. If you guys have ever been driving and been rutted on muddy roads, or you've done it on snow where the walls are high, maybe the mud is thick and deep, and you don't have a way to get your wheels out of it. You don't even have the room to maneuver to get yourself out. Tighter and tighter. We're more like running on rails at this point. State of play. For many Western European leaders, the UK is the ultimate cautionary tale, a live experiment in modern populism unfolding inside of one of the world's wealthiest and oldest democracies. This is the claim. Brexit began with the utopian promise of unshackling Great Britain and global Britain so they could curb immigration and slash red tape and take back control of the borders and budget. The funny thing is this, did they do any of those things? Did they get rid of the immigration? Did they shut it down? No. And in fact, we just had a report that came out showing that people who have immigrated into Great Britain, who did not adopt the values of Great Britain, whatever their version, I don't know what the British version of a bacon cheeseburger nationalist is. It's like a fish and chips nationalist or something, but there should probably be some other kind of like unique. It's a bangers and mash fish and chips nationalist. You know, where are the British people? When you go there and you find out that they've got a bunch of Muslim mayors, they've got a bunch of people that look nothing like Britain, they have no British values. You have concentrated culture that is protected, essentially like a parasitic influx of human beings that come in and bring a bunch of evil, rape, non-Western ideas about women and children and who should be protected. They didn't fix that. And then this guy's blaming it on Brexit, which I think is really unfair. Brexit began with the utopian promise they were going to unshackle the global Britain. It was going to curb immigration, slash red tape, and take back control of the borders and the budget. Isn't that really, really similar to Agenda 47? Seal the borders, stop the migrant invasion, carry out the largest deportation operation in American history, end inflation, make America affordable. They didn't say curb red tape, slash red tape, but curbing immigration, taking back control of the borders, fixing the money supply, defending fundamental freedoms, which are the American culture. This is what's missing. Kind of shocking in some ways. I will show you that there are some things getting done, and this is the thing that's getting done. And call me a cynic. That's fine. This is an article from CBS News. The Senate passed landmark housing affordability after bipartisan breakthrough. That makes me, basically, it sends a cold shiver down my spine. When I find out that both parties are working together to do something, it scares the living crap out of me. Because I can't think of a really good thing that's an example of like, oh yeah, this is what I was hoping we would get. Good governance. There's no evidence these people do good governance. So what the hell is sneaking around inside this bill? Now it's only gone through the Senate. It's got to go to the House. And of course, then it would have to be signed in by Donald Trump. The last thing that I saw that had this kind of bipartisan support is FISA. In fact, they take things that are unpopular, like securing the elections, which Tom Massey made reference to. And they try to hook it to something that is popular, like government surveillance and spying. We just got finished talking about flock cameras and AI and all the other crazy stuff with Skip. The Senate passed a bill aimed at lowering housing costs on Monday, because that's what the job of government is. I thought the American system was that the government was supposed to get the hell out of the freaking way. Wasn't that the whole point? The government gets out of your way, and then you can have success. The government stops taking all of your money, and then you could do the most things with it, and you make the best choices. Now, maybe you go completely broke, or maybe you make a fortune. But I thought that was sort of the deal that we were making in this country. Some sort of degree of liberty. And you did hear the Trump administration say that they wanted to go and protect our fundamental liberties. Some of those should be like, how do you use your own money in your own way? In an 85-5 vote, the Senate approved the legislation. 85-5. Along wide bipartisan margins, it now heads to the House. They had 10 people not show up. 85-5. You'll never see that. The bill, known as the 21st Century Road to Housing Act, aims to increase the housing supply and bring down costs. Again, what does this have to do with the government's role? None that I can tell. Limiting institutional investors from purchasing single-family homes. this is the one thing that they're touting. And I get really nervous when I see places like CBS saying that this is the thing. I'm not crazy about institutional investors coming in and buying houses. But the reason they can do that is because their money is more than you, that they have them at favorable interest rates compared to you. They're borrowing as institutional customers, and they can outbid everything, and they're doing it in bulk. So that's the problem, is not whether or not they're allowed to participate in here. The problem is a much, much further upstream issue. And we're acting like we're somehow going to fix it by fixing this little Band-Aid on this little low-level issue. The Senate approved an earlier package in March before the House in May approved another version of it. So this is the third version now approved, in this case by the Senate, and they've had multiple little iterations of it kind of flopping around. Last week, the Senate Banking and House Financial Services Committee announced a bicameral agreement on the long-sought legislation. The bill represents sweeping housing legislation, the most sweeping in decades. And then everybody's on board. Tim Scott from South Carolina is on board. Elizabeth Warren is on board. She's the ranking member on the Banking Committee. Chuck Schumer said this is how we're supposed to do business. French Hill of Arkansas, chairman of the House Financial Services, touted it as the adoption of one of the key priorities. It's not one of the key priorities that I saw listed in the Agenda 47, but sure, whatever you say, man. Maxine Waters says it's awesome. This should scare the hell out of people as a general rule. John Thune says it's great. Chuck Schumer, the Senate Minority Leader, said that the bipartisan bill shows Americans how we should govern, noting that the fact that Democrats and Republicans are able to come together on the road to housing at such a time of division shows just how dire America's housing crisis is today. Maybe. Perhaps. I mean, I just don't believe them. I'm going to have to go look into what's in that bill and what we're giving up. Because the powerful lobbies that have the money to be able to pay these people to be able to campaign, they just what? They just gave it up. There's like, oh, yeah, I guess we lost this round. If everybody that you normally disagree with thinks something's great and it went 85-5, isn't that something? I'll post a link to the bill. We'll get an AI analysis over there. It'll be in the link in the comments. You guys can read on it. I'm just looking at the meta coverage of this thing as I see when it's not really a topic I wanted to dig in, except then this is what we're getting out of our government. This is what we get. We get these like little scraps. And meanwhile, the people that thought they were getting something different, the 10 years ago, the Brexit thing, I had to go look up. I wasn't even sure. This is how little I pay attention to British party politics anymore. I actually lived in England for, 6-8 months, whatever it was. Back when I was in college, I went and did a semester over there. And I used to kind of understand what was happening. I haven't paid attention to it for a long time. I was like, wait, England really hasn't had the thing that they were promised. They all kind of thought they were going to shrug off the European immigration and all this other kind of BS. It doesn't seem like it's better over there. It does seem like it's tumultuous, just looking from the outside as someone who's kind of a casual observer. Did they even do Brexit? That's what I had to go look up today. And they did. They did it 6 years ago. So in 2016 was the first piece of it. And they had like a 4-year period to kind of negotiate the terms with Britain. And then in 2020, they separated. And has it gotten better? And the answer is it's still tumultuous. And putting in a guy who kind of looks like a gay British version of Clark Kent didn't solve the problem. If he was the sane, sober, rational, and level-headed guy, it didn't do it. So I think that's kind of shocking. And it's kind of sad because I don't want Britain to be in a bad spot. I kind of want Britain to be there so that when, my father went and studied over there when he was in college and I studied over there when I was in college, it'd be cool if my kids could go see it. We could see how different it is. I don't know if it'll even look like Britain anymore, to be fair. It's apparently racist or bigoted to say that Britain should be for the British. And that's wild. So what does that look like in the American version of it? We actually have a thing that is playing out currently right now. Again, you can look at the political right and go, yeah, this is not working. Is the political left the answer? I don't think it is. Let me give you a great example of where the political left is right now. And they are no more rational. They are not an option. And just like Tucker Carlson said, just because you're saying I'm not part of the GOP doesn't mean that I'm to the right of all you. And I also can read. And I don't know what argument this woman is making. This is Jim. Again, this is the thing where they all get in together and they go 1, 2, 3, gay CNN. And then they go do this like weird thing where they have to pick up crazy, weird talking points that have nothing to do with reality. And then they state them as though they're fact. Somebody probably cut a 350-foot long gap in the liner of this pool. And then we're also going to argue that the Electoral College is about slavery. I kid you not, 2026. That's what we're talking about on CNN.
It's better if you make the argument when you didn't lose the election. You know what I'm saying? Is that
from a position of strength.
On the position of strength. It's like, listen, anybody who studied any small bit of history knows the Electoral College is rooted in slavery. That was the entire reason that it was invented, essentially. And we should have gotten from up under it a long time ago. And not just because you have two women quite capable who lose the election. So I don't have a problem with her argument. I think it's probably correct. And I think most people in this country, you want to, a big reason there's a lot of apathy is because a lot of people feel like their vote doesn't matter. And the reason they feel that way is because they look at things like, okay, let me get this straight. We can all agree and all, from a popular vote standpoint, vote for a candidate and that candidate still lose, and that the math doesn't math for them. So it's like, why are we clinging to the system?
If anybody should
The math doesn't math is one of the dumbest expressions. I really don't like it when people who don't know how to do math, don't know anything about math, have never taken any higher level mathematics courses, have things to say about it. So let me get this straight. The reason the Electoral College exists was not to be able to remove the direct election of the President of the United States from the people, like they did so many other things. Like the United States government was founded in a quasi-elitist republic way. It was designed to remove things directly from sort of the whim of the masses on purpose. Remember, the upper chamber, the Senate, it was not something that you were even supposed to be able to vote on. You were supposed to vote on people in your state, and your state was supposed to send people to represent the states, which would have an ultimate say on whether or not something was a terrible, bad idea. She thinks the Electoral College was designed because of slavery? Because what? There was a population boost. 3/5 of the slaves were counted as 3/5 as a person. So then you got like this like population boost from a bunch of people who were not quote unquote citizens. Do you know what's crazy about the Electoral College move like that she's arguing for? I bet she's totally okay with them counting illegal aliens in the census. I mean, they're paying taxes, aren't they? They all work here and live here. They why don't they get to count? Right? The same people that would argue that the Electoral College is the result of slavery wants to see bigger representation from their states for illegals who have no business being here in the first place and should be deported. Freaking crazy. What have I got on the screen here? This is a story from Axios, which is decent, and it's going to lead into another thing of just total depravity. Democrats, this is Hakeem Jeffries and Mamdami, are in this, I don't even know what you call it. They're in a primary fight, proxy fight, to determine which wing of the Democrat Party in New York is going to prevail. And what you're seeing on the screen is one of my favorite representatives. This is Dan Goldman. He's speaking to reporters a couple days ago. Wait, July 19th? Oh, that had to be last year then. Why are they showing this? For some reason, they must have the wrong date on this, because I've seen this particular picture with him wearing this really ugly orange shirt. I have no idea why this man wears orange, but he looks ridiculous in it. And anyway, so he's on Instagram all over the place, and he's like hugging kids and being a complete creeper. Essentially, he represents the moderate faction, the status quo version of the Democrat Party, which is pretty freaking radical, people. And then the alternative is like full-on communists. New York's congressional primaries on Tuesday will be a key test of strength for the left-wing movement, which is challenging the Democratic establishment. Now, the Democratic establishment has been moving aggressively left for about the last 3 decades. In my lifetime, you could take the main positions, the Democrat planks that they ran on in the 1990s, and they are further to the right of Donald Trump's Agenda 47. That's a wild statement. Here's why it matters. This race is pitting the interests of House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, Democrat New York, against the Socialist Democrat Mayor of New York, Zoran Mamdami. Mamdami is one of the most prominent left-wing figures. He's sort of supplanted AOC and sort of this like Democratic Socialist of America thing. And he's backing 3 left-wing insurgents vying for the New York City-based House seats. Because New York is so big, it has 3 congressional representatives, one of whom is Dan Goldman, who is a piece of filth and garbage. and he lied to my friends, and he lied about my friends, and he got owned by my buddy Garrett O'Boyle while underneath testimony, like while they were testifying about, the FBI, because Dan Goldman spent a few minutes as a prosecutor, and then he turned around and then got owned by an FBI agent that was only in for a couple of years at the time. Quite interesting. Two of the insurgents are actually running against Democrat incumbents. Jeffries almost always supports the incumbents. That's sort of the nature of it. This is what we find out from Mike Johnson as well. You got to go out there and you got to support the people that are in the party. So the state of play, the state's 10th congressional district, Jeffries is supporting Dan Goldman, who I've mentioned I have a loathing for. And Mamdami is backing New York comptroller Brad Lander, who got arrested doing some like ICE protests and doing a bunch of other like shenanigans. And he seems equally awful. I think he was running for mayor of New York. So there you go. This is what it's down to. Dan Goldman is the lesser of the two evils. And he's pretty evil, I would say. Let me show you just how bad it is. Great story done by Cam Higbee. I'm going to start with the story part of it. So we're going to put this on. If you're watching at work, this may be a great time to make, I don't know, turn off your screen or put a window over the top of it. I'm going to just give you the benefit of the doubt because most people can't see this. If you got kids around, you don't want to show them this either. I will almost never give you kind of like a trigger type warning, but this is truly inappropriate stuff and it's really nasty. And this is the state of play in the Democrat Party. So here we go. Cam Higbee. He said this individual, whose name is John Blasco, NYC, makes six figures, about $128,000 a year as a chief of staff for Representative Dan Goldman. And he used physical force to stifle the press at, at Delaney Hall while wearing a House seal pin, I assume. And there he is in all of his disgusting homoerotic glory, rear ass exposed as well. There's his profile for his Twitter, which is now locked down, where him and Dan are looking at each other. That's pretty nauseating. I don't know what's going on there either. And the response to being exposed for having an absolute derelict pervert as your chief of staff, he's the interim or acting chief of staff at the moment. Dan Goldman came out and posted this. I don't know who you are, Cam Higbee. Well, you could actually find out who Cam Higbee is. Here, we'll find out who he is right here. Check it out. News and commentary, on-the-ground reporting, undercover infiltrations, Pentagon correspondence, inquiry, press at CamHigbeeUSA.com. And there's his DC tips. So there he is. He's a guy with 415,000 followers over on social media, on X, and he does reporting, and he's reporting. That's what he's doing. I don't know who you are, Cam Higbee, but this is a shockingly pathetic and stupid tweet. I'm sorry you don't feel comfortable in your own skin, but you just told on yourself. John is an incredible person and a public servant who served New York City with distinction, grace, and compassion. Qualities that you apparently do not have. I'm a member of Congress. You can come for me, but stay away from my staff. I stand with John today, tomorrow, and every day. Do better. And then we have this like abject display of faggotry. If you're a public servant and you are getting paid by American taxpayers, which is what's happening when you are the chief of staff for a member of Congress, then you're on the freaking menu in the same way that everybody who works for the federal government can be and everything else. If you're an FBI agent, you're on the menu. You work and because you receive money from the taxpayers. And if this is what your public face is, that says an awful lot about you, doesn't it? You've told on yourself? What he told is that this guy used physical force and was trying to keep him from doing his job. You know, like not really interested in freedom of the press. Kind of staggering. Not quite as crazy as maybe some of the things out there. We've seen like a transgender person showing off, you know, whatever, fake breasts on the White House lawn and so on. But that's who the most rational version of the Democrat Party is. Is that not like just eye bleach material? You guys are even saying in the chat. It's the Homer Simpson, like pouring the bleach in the eyes at this point. It's freaking crazy. So, since Dan Goldman is in the news, apparently the Republicans decided this was a great opportunity for them to go ahead and do the thing that you do when you have principles. Or maybe it's just social media attention whoring. And we're going to go there and we're going to wrap up on this. You're watching on Rumble, YouTube, give us a like. You may end up hearing something from them at Spotify right now. We'll leave a spot for an ad. And thank you guys for listening. Okay. Are you ready? It's my favorite. Speaking of cultures that have taken over yours, here she is, the California twice divorced, once widowed. She is the associate. Is it associate or the assistant? I never remember what AAG stands for. She doesn't even say it. I think it's the associate assistant. I think it's the associate attorney general, Harmeet Dillon, for the Civil Rights Division. She says the Civil Rights Division is aware of a denial of service taunting Dan Goldman. Oh, you mean the guy we just covered who has the leather-clad, raw butt-cheeked guy as a chief of staff? Yeah. By Poetica Coffee in Brooklyn, which is some tiny little coffee shop that no one's ever heard of that sells $9 coffee. Kyle, how do you know it was $9 coffee? Oh, because Dan posted the receipt, literally a receipt. Federal law prohibits public accommodations such as coffee shops from discriminating against patrons based on their race, religion, or national origin. Okay, we're going to find out if that's going to be the case here. These actions are not only reprehensible, they're potentially illegal. This is a virtue signaling by the woman who plays to the Wuhajuru room, the demon god. No one really knows what the Wuhajuru guru thing believes are virtuous, but apparently this is one of them. The Civil Rights Division has opened an investigation and will bring an enforcement action if warranted. So our DOJ is going to go protect Dan Goldman from, get this right, getting a free coffee and being told he's no longer welcome in a coffee shop. We'll get into that in 1 second here. If you've ever been denied service at a public accommodation on the basis of a protected characteristic, we at the Justice Department want to know. And then if you're really famous or we can get some press about it, then we'll talk about it. But basically, we will not. The New York City coffee shop banned the pro-Israeli politician in a nasty post, says the New York Post. And they show here, there he is at the coffee shop. This is apparently the coffee place. It says coffee, a bunch of E's. And he was refunded $9.82 for his coffee, which seems like a lot of money for coffee. Apparently, that's what happens when you are a Levi Strauss heir and you have hundreds of millions of dollars. Okay, so I saw this and I started following this gal the other day on X because this is actually the real take. Refusing to serve a lawmaker who supports and funds Israel, and then she goes on and adds her own editorial, committing genocide doesn't violate civil rights. Israel is not a race. Israel is not a religion. Dan Goldman is not Israeli. And there goes your national origin BS. They claimed that they discriminated against him, that he was banned from going to their coffee shop because he supported Israel and nothing else. And this goes back to our Huckabee thing and our Mark Levin nonsense. You're allowed to have a political opinion, one would think. And I think you're allowed to refuse service to anybody as long as it's not for one of the things that are protected. They don't cite religion. They do cite his political takes. The Trump administration was getting kicked out of stuff all the time. He got a free coffee. And they said, don't come back. If we recognize you, we don't want to serve you because of who you are as a politician, not because of something else. I think you're allowed to do that in America. And of course, that means that our Civil Rights Division has to go out and virtue signal this stuff. Are they fixing the wrongs that were done? That Anthony Fauci went and violated all the civil liberties of all the people that were violated? Did they fix the wrongs that are being done by this weaponized government that continues to exist and the people have not been held accountable? No. More evidence. You're not going to vote your way out of it. I'm going to play you Steve Cortez. He's a former, apparently senior Trump advisor. I think he does some work now with Catholic Vote as well, because I saw him commenting on Catholic Vote. And he's saying that Anthony Fauci is the most villainous person in American history. He's the most villainous guy that's ever been involved in the U.S. history, and he's walking free. He's a multimillionaire, and he's never going to go to prison for anything. And the only people that are hearing about it are in the Senate, which means there's no teeth, there's no law enforcement, there's no Harmeet Dillon coming for him. It's the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, as she left, saying this guy did a bunch of villainous stuff. He lied. He covered things up. He used our money to do reprehensible and awful things, and he's an atrocious human being. You've got people on Newsmax cheering the same thing, or News Nation rather. And then the result is what? Nothing. Zero outcomes. So for all the $3.7 billion fraudsters that the FBI let escape and then the FBI was able to retrieve when the Turkish government held on to them, for all of the outrage and incense that they have, the incensed feelings they have about Dan Goldman getting a free cup of coffee when he's worth like hundreds of millions of dollars, and they said you can't come back to our business anymore, which you probably won't. That's what our DOJ is doing. And they're not dealing with Fauci, right? We're not getting the government gangsters. I thought that was the whole point of this administration.
You know, Katie, no exaggeration, Fauci is the most monstrous and malicious figure in all of American history. Think of the damage wrought by him. So he lied, he criminally lied, perjured himself under oath to cover up the fact that he was secretly using our money to fund the very lab that created this epidemiological dirty bomb that was unleashed upon the world. And think about the further sequence. What did Fauci then do? Rather than trying to confront this concocted virus as a medical professional, instead, he launched a massive propaganda campaign to use fear and panic to compel the American people into submission to his ludicrous edicts, so that he could become effectively a dictator, at least for a time, over the United States. It's hard to think of a worse series of actions from a single individual in all of U.S. history. Dr. Fauci did more damage to this country. He caused more misery, more death, more financial catastrophe than any foreign adversary of this country has ever dreamed of inflicting upon the United States.
Right. So will he pay for that? Will he be imprisoned? Will he be prosecuted? Will they find anything that they can do? No. And if you guys remember, we paid millions of dollars a year protecting this guy while he was in the government and even after he left the government. Our federal government spent millions of dollars putting a security detail to make sure he was safe. So, you tell me how that all works. I don't know. We all knew this was going the wrong direction, that this administration was jacked up. I saw it real early on. I saw it probably as early as March, which is unfortunate, when they started making terrible decisions, when they brought on people like Dan Bongino to be the FBI deputy director. And I gave him all the benefit of the doubt. Like, if he brought in people that knew what was going on, imagine if somebody actually showed up and did the thing that they were supposed to do. We could go, oh, well done. Congratulations. You have stepped in and done the thing that you said you were going to do. It's so rare. That's the thing that we think, that's what we thought we were getting with Donald Trump. We're taking a guy from the private sector. He knows about business and he knows about how the real world is. We're going to put him in here. We're going to put somebody in here who's not part of the machine. And then 292 days later, Daniel Bongino goes back to his podcast. Donald Trump apparently got removed, didn't pardon everybody after January 6th. Ran a campaign talking about election security, and we don't have election security. But we do have a housing bill that 85 out of 90 people voted for, and everybody's on board, but nobody can get the Save America Act and any of this kind of stuff. This is, what's his name? Julian. I'll look him up again. Sorry. Every time I forget his name. Dory. I think he's in Austin. In the same way the Tucker Carlsons are walking away from the GOP, I think people that were part of a general coalition of saying, it's bad, we need something different, maybe Donald Trump could be the difference. Maybe somebody who is an outsider is the answer. Maybe bringing in people from Fox News and commentators, like maybe they're the guy. Maybe people who say, he doesn't have the background for this. That's the guy. Maybe the people who have the background are the problem. I mean, Seraphin, aren't you always arguing that you can't do reform with the same people? You can't put people from the machine back into the machine and expect a different result? Yeah, I do. Okay, fine. If you gave that a chance and you saw it and it didn't work, then you end up kind of like this. I think there's a lot more Americans who are just saying, when does this, we're on the rails. We're not off the rails, by the way. We're on the rails. We're in that rut. We are going in a very crazy direction. I just think that we've either gone faster or slower speeds. But when Dan Goldman is your sane choice in New York 10, and he's got this weirdo chief of staff who's out there advising him, doesn't that kind of tell you which direction we're going? I think a lot more people are going to be post-partisan, not interested in any of this stuff, and more interested in like, what can I do to handle my own business? Because we sure as hell aren't voting on this one.
What happened to you? I never liked you, to be clear. Your worldview and my worldview are two very, very different things.
He's talking
about
Bongino
I at least,
here.
And I've said this before, respected the fact that a lot of people talk about things, and you did in fact pick up leave your multi-million-dollar job with, that you created for yourself with your huge podcast audience and all that, and go take a round-the-clock government job that doesn't pay much to try to follow through on some of the things that you wanted to see happen at the FBI. Now, you'd worked at Secret Service, and I wasn't really sure your credentials to be the deputy director of FBI, but I respected walking the talk, if you will.
The hustle.
Yeah.
You respected the hustle, if you will.
And by the way, what we're about to see with Bongino here in this story, this is right around the time where he did that famous hostage video, as I've called it in the past, with Fox News next to Kash Patel, where he looks like, someone's holding a laser on his head, like they're going to shoot him.
Everybody sees the turn at exactly the same moment. I talked about it the other day with Alex Jones on InfoWars or on the Alex Jones Network. It's going to be hard to get rid of InfoWars out of my head. A lot of years of that being around. Everybody saw that same moment where they were like, oh shit, these guys don't have a chance. The hostage video, the one with Maria Bartiromo. That was it. That was the moment when people who were paying attention, that were really, really tuned in to, is this going to work? That's when it was pretty obvious. Like, okay, unfortunately, we've just got the foreshadowing. It's not going to work.
But it is so clear behind the scenes that Dan Bongino had serious problems with, I'm going to speculate, pure spec on this part, with some things he had seen with these files, and was obviously still loyal to President Trump, which is kind of a separate issue for now. I'll bookmark that aside. But strongly, again, as someone who was terminally online and knew where people stood, felt like this needed to be at least somewhat released and handled in a completely different manner. He obviously had no intellectual respect for Pam Bondi. That's probably fair. But I see a Bongino in this story, in this July 2025 period, that was an entirely different Dan Bongino than we saw in January 2026 when he had left.
That's all true. Because he went into an FBI that was entirely the same, and it's never changed. And I've got some final arguments to be making on that, but not before we enjoy one of my favorite songs of 2026.
Who's the man that quit his podcast to serve his country? Dan Bongino. Who's the man that quit that job in 292 days? Dan Bongino. Who's the man that went on Fox News and complained he missed his wife because he had to go into an office? Dan Bongino.
I stare at these four walls all day and I gave up.
Who took one look into the Epstein files and said, nothing to see here, folks? Dan Bongino. Who was forced into retirement after 2 civilian deaths in Minneapolis? Greg Bovino. I used to want to be at the RNC. I used to want to be like Dan Bongino. But these days I only want to be.
Should we run the whole song?
Like the great one.
It hits well. Let's do it.
Danny DeVito. Danny DeVito. We call out from the darkness for light. Danny DeVito. Take flight. I wanna be like Danny D.
That was the penguin.
I wanna meet the cast of Taxi. I wanna scream for Jumanji 3. I wanna be like Danny DeVito. I wanna be like Danny D. I wanna be like Danny DeVito. I wanna be like Danny D. I wanna be like Danny DeVito.
Let's jump out of here. FBI agent claims she was iced out from agency after reporting coworkers' drunken advances. Lawsuit. It's the same FBI, guys. Monday, 22 June 2026. That was yesterday. Exclusives after Special Agent Jane Doe reported the situation to FBI management. She, quote, hit a brick wall and her calls for justice remained unanswered, her attorney told The Independent. Because we got to go to Europe to get this story. We started in Canada discussing female law enforcement. Let's come on back to our own FBI. She was iced out and her calls for justice remain unanswered. I want you to think about that. We're going to just scroll to the bottom of this article because we'll get to the story. But don't worry about that. I want you to know the ending up front. This is what we call the bottom line up front. Jane Doe, as she is now referred to in the lawsuit, is now seeking compensatory damages for emotional distress, humiliation, embarrassment, pain and suffering, and loss of enjoyment of life, plus attorney's fees, litigation's expenses, and court costs, plus interest. She remains on the job. This is a current FBI agent working out of the San Francisco field office, per the story, who's suing the FBI because she was iced out of the agency and she still works for the flippin' agency. Now, let's read the story because it's wonderful. A female FBI agent is suing the Department of Justice over claims that her fledgling career, which started in 2022, which means she's like 3 years into it at best, stalled out. I don't even know what that means. It's stalled out after she rebuffed a senior male agent's romantic overtures, according to a federal lawsuit reviewed by The Independent. The rookie agent, who was assigned to the Bureau's San Francisco field office, can we just also recognize that we're talking about the San Francisco field office, which is one of the most left-leaning, insanely leftist, like the people who go to San Francisco overwhelmingly, and certainly the people who stay in San Francisco, want to be in San Francisco. You can imagine what kind of people those are. It's anonymized in court filings as Jane Doe. Says that her complaint was that the senior agent fed her alcohol during an out-of-town conference, pressured her to send him nude photos, and then ultimately, quote, engaged in inappropriate contact of a sexual nature. What in the world? What is this all about? Look at that. They just stole my article. There we go. Good Lord. Unbelievable. Guardian. Well, this is what I get for not downloading an archive version of it. Stand by. I'll get this story back. The story is pretty awful because that's what they wrote and that's the summary of it. And that sounds like it's not like a big problem comparatively speaking. And then you read that the actual story is something a little bit more nefarious. The real story is like she basically got drunk with a buddy and they bought booze for her. And then she alleges that somebody had some sort of sexual contact with her, but there's not really any evidence that that took place. In other words, it's literally just her allegation. She claims that here, we'll pull it up here. Now I got it. Let's see how far down we can get into the story. She says that after this moment took place, she was so intoxicated, she has no memory or recollection of ultimately engaging in inappropriate sexual contact. After Jane Doe reported the situation to higher-ups, the senior agent immediately began to, quote, marginalize, sideline, exclude, and isolate her from normal workplace activities. That sounds awesome, by the way, working at the FBI and not having to do stupid FBI stuff. She's been working there for 3 years. Do you know how much responsibility you get after 3 years? It's not much. She alleges that she was no longer looped in on critical updates, meetings, and interviews related to assigned cases, and then spread false rumors she was sleeping with a married supervisor. Well, when you make stupid decisions, I'm not going to blame a victim here. I'm also going to say that I've worked with female FBI agents, and all of them that were at the academy were doing shady stuff except one in my class. She further escalated her concerns to management. The complaint told her that her boss was not going to act on the allegations. There would be no investigative action and the case was closed. She was then reassigned to a newly created, unstaffed unit, a significant downgrade for her as a brand new agent going to a new unit. Who actually gives a shit? She still has a job. The transfer effectively stripped her of her existing cases, and it was a professional setback that stunted her advancement. If you want to know what women in the FBI are hoping to do, they want to become girl bosses. And this is a great, I don't know anything about this woman other than reading it, and everybody that I've put in front of it, it's all gross. Okay, so let's get to the facts of the case. She pursued a career with the FBI to protect everyday Americans from criminals, even though she's a woman and she's not the best person to protect anybody from anybody. That's a fact. She's going to seek justice on behalf of their victims. Gag me. As detailed in the lawsuit, she experienced pervasive and shocking treatment. Despite her efforts to resolve the treatment within the FBI, she hit a brick wall, and her calls for justice remain unanswered. What happened to her, this woman? She was so wronged. Nobody from DOJ wants to comment on it. She joined the FBI April of 2022 under Joe Biden. She was a probationary special agent. which was filed, her complaint was filed in June. In August of 2023, that was 3 years ago, she traveled from San Francisco to a professional conference in Colorado. Two senior co-workers of Doe's, identified in the complaint as Special Agent 1 and Special Agent 2, they were working with Special Agent Red on Task Force Blue. They were assigned to attend the conference, and they had already arrived by the time she got there. Upon landing, Special Agent 1 texted Doe to meet him and Special Agent 2 at a bar. The complaint continues. This is my favorite. Do you know how many people have said, hey, Seraphin, let's go do this thing? And you go, no, F you. You're a grown-up. Theoretically, you're hired for discretion. That's the only thing that the FBI says that they hire you for. Although Doe hadn't checked into her hotel and she still had her luggage with you, Special Agent 1, quote, encouraged her to meet with them before doing so. And she's so dumb that she did. It says here that Doe agreed because, quote, she believed it was important for developing a positive relationship with two senior agents that would facilitate her field training. Also known as she wanted to get a drink with some guys at a bar. When Doe got to the bar, it became clear that Special Agent 1 and Special Agent 2 had been drinking for some time, the complaint contends, claiming the pair provided Doe with alcoholic drinks that they had already ordered and purchased for her, and continued to order and pay for alcoholic drinks until she was visibly intoxicated, but they didn't force them down her throat. She's a grown woman who has a gun and a badge, and she's drinking on the job while she's on a work trip with two people that were already apparently drunk. And she was dumb enough to say that that's their fault. At a certain point during the complaint, let's just say it was a mistake, Special Agent 1 and 2 began falsely insinuating that she and a superior identified as Supervisory Special Agent 3 were having an affair. The interaction left Doe feeling demoralized and objectified and uncomfortable, and that's why she was drinking with two men in a bar while she was on work hours. I've done this like 0 times. The number of times that I've been caught hanging out with, that didn't like me either. Why does this webpage not want to work? The number of times I've been caught sitting or like been drinking at a bar with my coworkers who are just females is 0. This is a crazy contention. This is something they do at the FBI Academy though. And you'd see it and you're like, oh, we're going to put these people into a job with a badge and a gun. I'm sure this is going to work out well. She felt demoralized and objectified. So there you go. Roughly an hour later, the complaint states, Doe and the two males took Ubers back to their hotel where she checked in and went to her room. And that's when Special Agent 2 texted Doe, invited her to his room to, quote, make mistakes together, according to the complaint, and she declined the invitation. All right, let's just say that that's all what happened. Good. These guys are dirtbags doing dirtbag things, if this is correct, and that's an if. This is where it becomes her problem. The next evening, Doe and a group of other agents, including Special Agent 1 and 2, went out for drinks and dinner, the complaint explains. And once again, 1 and 2 bought drinks for Doe until she was visibly intoxicated. So let's just get it real straight. Here's how it goes down. According to the complaint that they're reading here, she is a new agent. She needs to boost her career. She has to hang out with people who are at work and then are drinking at work, and they're buying her drinks. And she accidentally gets drunk, and then the guy says, let's go make some mistakes together. Then she voluntarily goes out to dinner with them again, and then they're drinking again, and she drinks the drinks that they're buying her again until she's visibly intoxicated. Her words in the complaint. When the outing was over, Doe was back in her hotel room, and Special Agent 2 texted her asking for nude pictures of herself. The number of things that would have had to have happened for that to be the case, pretty wild. She says she declined. Then Special Agent 2 wished her a good night, and she became physically sick from the alcohol she consumed, and she went to bed. This is a top secret clearance carrying, gun toting, badge wearing federal agent. After that, she subsequently learned that SA2 wrote that he entered her hotel room that evening, and on information and belief, we don't know what this means, but she believes SA2 engaged in inappropriate conduct of a sexual nature with Doe while she was intoxicated. I think there's a lot of weight being carried by some of this statement here. She subsequently learned through his written admission that he entered her hotel room. Doesn't say he broke in, so that gets really weird. Did she let him in while she was drunk? Nobody knows. But maybe that's why the FBI didn't want to pursue this. In any case, I don't side with the agency. I think the agency is garbage. I think it hires garbage people, and all these people sound like they're trash. These people all have jobs, and Steve Friend does not. On information and belief, SA2 engaged in inappropriate sexual conduct While she was intoxicated, she has no independent memory or recollections of those events. When they returned, then he was a jerk, and he began to belittle, demean, and harass her to her squad mates. They would roll their eyes when she spoke. The behavior continued unabated, and she hasn't been able to get promoted. I'll post this here. You guys can read the rest of it. You have to be at least 25 to become an FBI special agent. She got into that job, even if she was in the youngest, she was 26 years old. And she had a top secret clearance, making a decent salary, carrying a gun, and she showed up voluntarily twice to drink drinks that some men bought her. And she's the victim. And now she still has a job, and she can't get her career to advance. You read these stories, and you're like, yeah, how did you think you were going to fix this rotten, broken culture? My buddy Phil Kennedy posted something the other day talking about how the FBI is really a two-headed snake. One of those snakes tells you what you want, kind of like our government. It says things like, we're going to fix affordable housing. We're going to make sure that institutional investors can't buy the house from underneath you. And the other snake is busy out there like pumping up Anthony Fauci with millions of dollars to send an epidemic across the entire globe and kill off all the people and shut down all the freedoms that you're used to. Cool. Anyway, Tucker Carlson, I think, is late to the party on this game. Julian Dorey, I think, is late to the party in this game. And again, the other side doesn't offer us anything else. So handle the things you guys can handle. Check out your Fs, whatever those are. If you still have any Fs to give, I now have a final thing that I think is fun, and we'll do something about the Catholic Church maybe tomorrow. I was going to do it yesterday, but we ran out of time. We had that issue. Hopefully you guys enjoyed what you guys saw today, and hopefully the videos were working all well, and hopefully all the streaming and the smoothness of the camera is improved. So enjoy that. Like us on Rumble, like us on YouTube. This is our final thought. If you got nothing else, as long as you do it in moderation, and as long as you do it and you are a grown-up about it, you can always have a beer, and you can always work on your freedoms and your firearms and your fitness and your faith and your family. And maybe something funny like this guy here who's talking about how he wishes beer was water. This is the same guy that was wondering about cheese. This guy's great. He's a comedic genius of a sort. Enjoy this thought about what's wrong with your water and why doesn't it taste like bread?
How's your water?
It's not good. It's not anything. You're lying to her and yourself. Your whole life, it's felt like something's been missing. Every football game, every time you ate a burger or gambled, something was missing. Water. Why can't it be more like bread? Why can't I drink bread? What if I wait for her to go to work and then fuck around with wheat and barley and water and heat it up and wait for all the natural sugars to coagulate and shit? Fuck it, I'll add a gross inedible vegetable that serves no other purpose, like hops. Then I'll get weird with it. Add some living ingredients like a fungus. Even if this kills me, what was I living for anyway? Batch 57, first lager. My findings were inconclusive, so I decided the best course of action was to sample 12 glasses in a row. The following morning, my field notes were illegible. My head was pounding and I gained 7 pounds. Even stranger, I discovered a bag of Taco Bell sitting outside of my door. The only logical thing to do with this strange drink is serve it at restaurants and sporting events and house parties and weddings and concerts, funerals, family gatherings, parades, movies, and church.
Yeah, and maybe you could just give it to some FBI agents and then see what happens, see if it ruins their career, if they decide to get sexually freaky and make some mistakes with their coworkers. That would be fantastic. That would be the best case scenario. Anyway, we can at least laugh about it, can't we? Guys, thanks for listening. Appreciate you guys being here. Make sure you support our sponsors. God bless all of you. Look forward to seeing you for the rest of this week. I think that the glitches have been mostly solved, and the ones that were not solved, I think I found them. So we're going to go and get those squared away. See you again tomorrow. Have a fantastic Tuesday, first day of my week, I guess. See you on the other side.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram @Kyle Seraphin.